It's Monday, December 16th. We'll call the meeting to order with the workshop session. We have a quorum present, and it is 6:04. Councilman Schroeder will not be in attendance this evening. The first item on the workshop is the discussion of agenda items posted for consideration on the regular council session for today. Is it, Mike, did you?
I'm just here to answer questions if you have any in preparation of the meeting.
All right. Does anyone have anything?
Just thinking, we tend not to talk about anything with that. Should we consider making our workshops not having the cameras roll, where we can get maybe more a free and lively discussion on items?
Can we? I mean,
Did you say you can't do that?
I don't see a problem with having the cameras rolling.
Just asking. No. We tend to skip over things, and we put on the agenda, but we really don't talk about it. And I'm just wondering, maybe it's because the cameras are rolling, we don't want to say anything.
As it relates to this first item, Councilman Lamont, it's really for a point of clarification. It's not to deliberate the action. That's for the regular council meeting. But if you may have a question for clarification, so that you can prepare your thoughts for deliberation.
It's just a thought.
I think that
I hope that if we've done our job, that you don't have any questions.
no, but I think that it's something that bears thinking about. We may be able to. We've gone back and forth on how we handle workshops, and I think it's something as we get into our strategy sessions or discussion. Maybe we need to look at the procedures. Okay.
Just a thought.
Okay, item 2, discussion of proposed agenda items. And unfortunately, there wasn't very much on this, but I know we have other items to be discussed. But the thing that I would really like to make sure that we do here is when we have items that are coming up on the next agenda, if we have information or questions and information that we would like provided to us in order to properly assess that item, we need to ask. This is the time to bring it out. To say, okay, we're going to be talking about this topic. I would like this kind of research.
You're talking about the
The next
meeting.
agenda. That's the purpose. I'm just kind of going over, that's the purpose for having that here.
Well, I'd like to add an item to that document, and I was hoping to add it before tonight's meeting, but I think the staff will be prepared to present to the council all the necessary information and data collection efforts that we've gone through to provide for the council to decide a logo for the town of Trophy Club.
That's what I was wondering. When we are going to do the logo.
I was hoping that we could have that out on a vote and just ratify,
No, after
Cam-
5.5 years of this, you're going to get to raise your hand
I just want
and
to.
decide what does the logo look like.
I just want to canvass the vote.
Okay.
I will say that
So
I'm
you
very
can-
impressed.
You should expect something on January 6th agenda.
You want canvas?
I just want to canvass the vote.
No. Okay, is there any other, as I said, we don't have too many items. We need to make a point of trying to make sure that we have the items that we suspect will be coming up so that we can ask those questions. Okay? All right. Item number 3, discussion of baseball and future youth sports association agreements. Adam.
Madam Mayor, if I can interrupt Adam first, I would hope that this workshop item will provide staff some direction toward buying a little bit of time to present to you a comprehensive youth sports association model that addresses baseball, football, and soccer completely throughout. I think that if we're going to have a strong agreement with the Baseball Association, one needs to be just as strong with all the youth associations. So I hope the purpose tonight will be to get some general consensus of the council. Probably the wrong state of the word, because we're not calendared for action tonight,
Well,
but
direction.
some direction, thank you. To move forward with a short-term agreement to allow the baseball association, who's in the middle of spring signups already, to get through the spring season, and perhaps kick to the park board a task to address a comprehensive solution or recommendation for youth sports. Having said that, I know Adam and I know Chuck Hall is here representing the association, baseball association. And I'm kind of flying in the dark here because I don't know what his board did last night, but we would hope that we could get a 6-month window to allow them to continue with what they're doing and looking at this in a much more broader perspective across the spectrum of youth sports utilizing town facilities. So with that, I'm going to kick it to Adam and Chuck.
Okay, I also want to recognize Matt Tibbetts. Matt Tibbetts is the president of the Roanoke, Trophy Club Roanoke, Greater Northwest. It takes me years to change logos, you know.
Soccer.
For soccer. Just a little bit tonight. Obviously, they are both associations. I talked to soccer and told them they would probably be looking at some sort of contract coming up in their fall season, and soccer was aware of that. The discussion tonight, obviously, Park Board didn't meet their last 2 meetings. Last one, you had it was a late notice in the weather. And we'd been in discussions with baseball just to get through the spring season. We had requested earlier that they increase their fee from a $5 fee to a $10 fee, and they've already implemented that. So that they've already implemented that. They're gonna do it as a pass-through fee on their spring registration. I'm sorry. And then there was some other issues that you had different people looking at other cities. And there were some questions, you know, could we alter a couple more things on the contract, but you couldn't do much because they're already underway. So what we're hoping is tonight for council from the staff standpoint is that I could have some direction to take to Park Board. And, you know, Park Board could even do, I'm not going to speak for them, but normally when something like this that requires a lot of work, I would anticipate that they would probably create some type of subcommittee just to look at it, because we would need to do it more than just the once a month type deal. So we're just looking for direction tonight. I'll let Chuck and Matt speak for themselves, but I've been in communications with them, like I said, and I think, you know, they answered. I know I was privy to, you know, they were asked a number of questions, and I believe baseball answered them fairly transparently on all accounts from what I saw. I also provided, which I think was part of the thing that no one really had looked at before, the cost estimates that which I believe are correct for Independence East and West, both utilizing RBA, in other words, them using the facility, and then the cost of the facilities just that they were built this way. You know, the facilities require upkeep regardless whether an association was using them or not, because all the fields, we have irrigation in fields. So I broke it down, and I don't know if council ended up with that or not, but I think the association has it, Councilman Lamont has it, the breakdown associations. And I mean, I'll answer any questions, and I think the gentlemen will answer any questions council has as well.
Please.
So let me ask you this. Are you saying that there's 500 people that played in both spring and fall? 500?
Or which
You
association?
said it was $5 a piece. That's what you just stated. So 2,500, that's 500. Is that where you capped it?
Yeah, the fall season, the estimate was I think it was 2,500. That was the number I'd originally been given. I mean, it just ended, so I don't know what that ended up being. But they cut us a check. It was a wasn't it just $5 a head, or did we just call it 2,500
Our
bucks?
agreement was 5,000 a year, 2,500.
It was
per
2,500
season,
bucks.
Yeah, that's what I didn't know.
Regardless of number of kids, and we certainly had a lot more than 500.
No, well, I just
I
didn't know.
apologize.
I didn't know
Yeah.
where you got the $5 at.
Oh, okay. You're right. Sorry about that. Yeah, $2,500 was the fall.
2,500 per season.
I just didn't know. where you-
Mayor White, Town Council, thanks for the opportunity, as always, to come before you. We appreciate these workshops and
opportunities to give you feedback, input, and guidance from our perspective. I really did not come prepared with a presentation tonight. I know that, just to reiterate what Adam said, in terms of the spring moving forward agreement, we have launched registrations based on the understanding that, we moved away from the 2,500 per season or 5,000 per year in lieu of an incremental increase on individual head count premiums of $10. And I don't know that we want to get into the math with all that right now, but that ship has sailed. We've opened up registrations online, and Adam and I and others have worked together from a communication standpoint because we know people are going to have questions, and we've tried to adequately address those. So my hope is that as a result of this meeting and potentially future meetings, that we don't go back to the 1,300 members that played for TCR YBA over the past 2 seasons, including Select, to say, hey guys, we don't really have our stuff together, and we need to rescind what we've originally proposed. That to me would be a black eye for a lot of people, everyone in this room included. So my hope is that we can, move forward with what we have in place, given what we've already communicated, and then should we consider, based on input and workshops and all these other things, modifying the proposal on a go-forward basis, that we do that potentially in the fall or at some point when we've had adequate input and analysis for any suggestions that are to be considered. There were some minimum proposed asks of me, things like background checks, audited financials, names and addresses of kids, presumably to help define and determine what % of our organization is, TC only versus outside. And I think generally speaking, we're fine with the majority of those, if not all of those. Mike, Mr. Sly,
Okay.
those were proposed, and to me, there's really no issue there. I had some reservations, to be honest with you, with providing names and addresses simply from a confidentiality standpoint. But I think if we can bake some verbiage into the contract that says, this is going to go to a specific individual and it's going to be used specifically for these purposes, I think that's fair and adequate. I just want to make sure that the information that we provide isn't disclosed inappropriately. So, yes, sir.
Are you saying Adam asked you for the names and addresses of the?
No. Actually, Greg, I think, asked me for the names and addresses.
They're rosters, and they're provided to most of the municipalities around at least the DFW area.
Yeah.
At whose direction?
It's in your standard baseball contracts.
I have a
No,
question.
I have, hold on. Did you ask for yourself or as a council member?
I asked for myself and as a council person. At a park board meeting, I was asked, we were sitting with Adam, and I asked if he would send financials to Adam so we could take a look at them, because in most of these contracts, they provide financials, and we didn't get them. Then that escalated. They wanted to meet with me to go over the financials.
Who wanted to meet with you?
The Baseball Association.
May I add a little color to the conversation that you guys
Please
are
do.
having? About 2 or 3 weeks ago, Greg reached out to, Mr. Lamont reached out to me, among others. Actually, initially it was with James Phillips. You guys may remember him. And I'm assuming this is full disclosure here, and we're all about transparency. I don't have any issues, and hopefully no one hearing me will have any issue. But we were asked to provide bylaws, financials. That was the initial ask, initial request. And my initial response was, you can have it. But after further discussions with the board, we felt it might not be the best of ideas to circulate a written copy of our financials. So we asked Greg to, and anyone else that he wanted to include on his part, to meet with us so that we could show him the numbers and then walk him through those numbers, as well as the bylaws, which I did supply you, Greg. Subsequent to that initial exchange of information, Greg had sent us a questionnaire that had about 25 or so questions, ranging from, makeup of your organization, how are your board members selected, background checks, and a number of other areas, which we provided the answers to the best of our ability. And this was a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get together and convene to review the financials or the bylaws because there were conflicts with the weather one week, and then Greg had a meeting on Tuesday, which was our last scheduled meeting. So there's been a lot of back and forth between Greg and our organization, and my priority was to always remain transparent, to provide to the best of our ability any information requested to a certain extent, understanding that I can't answer all these questions myself. I have to lean on others on the board to help provide some of that information, particularly when it comes to the select organization. I oversee the TCR YBA baseball, primarily rec, and then we have another group that kind of oversees the select. I don't have all the details and content on that, but I just wanted to add that, Mr. Mayor, to your question, or Mr. Danny Mayor, not Mrs. Mayor.
And I think
You know what I mean.
that's the reason we were saying here that what we want to do, what we're going to come out of this, is some direction from the council as opposed to an individual, and try to move forward and as to what we think we need or how we need to look at it. So that,
Well, I just want to say that I find this distressing, that a council member would go out on their own and start gathering information. If each of us starts doing that, we're not going to get anything done with any contract we have with any vendor anytime. I guess we're going to talk about trash tonight. I don't know how many of us went over and visited with Allied and went over their financial statements, but I find this, I just find this unacceptable.
Well, let me just go over this again. They asked to meet with me,
Who asked to meet with you?
the Baseball Association, James Phillips.
They just called you out of the blue and said, we want to meet with
The
you.
original request from Greg was for us to provide hard copy financials. Upon review, our determination, and based on recommendations from others within the board, was we're happy to provide the detail. However, we want to do it in person so that we can provide context, number one.
Fine.
And then secondly, we didn't feel it was in the best interest of the association to have our audited financials floating around when potentially there was no non-disclosure agreement in place between us and the city and other potential ramifications. So we backed up and said, hey, we're prepared to disclose this to you, but we believe it's in the best interest of everyone to do it in person at a meeting. So yes, we did request that meeting.
And Adam was also invited.
Yeah, I'm not sure who else was invited or who wasn't, but
Just a point of context, sir.
yes, ma'am.
Greg, did all of this occur in the park board meeting, that how this interchange began?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm not sure.
is that where it
Yeah,
occurred?
Mr. Phillips was at a park board. There was a lack of a quorum, so there was not an official meeting. So we were sitting around talking, and in fact, Adam was sitting right next to me. And I said, could you send us the financials?
Okay.
But
I guess
why
wait just a minute. I just want to, because we do have a couple of new members, and I guess I'm sensitive to it. And that is when we represent liaison to other board commissions. As council people, we have been asked not to put ourselves into that conversation in such a way that we influence, direct the board meetings.
Well, this was not a board meeting.
And I understand that. That's all. But I'm just taking this opportunity
This
to
was me
say
talking to a
that,
resident.
and I hear that. That's why I asked for the context of it.
And
If I could, to that point, Jeanette's point, it's in the handbook for council members and elected official, or for elected and appointed officials, and it says, it's the very last paragraph. And it says, in order to preserve and promote independent advice and decision from town boards, commissions, or corporations, and the integrity of the independent board process, council liaisons and council members shall refrain from making inputs which lack council consensus. However, council members may speak before any board, commission, or committee on behalf of their own financial interest, in which case they shall publicly state the nature of their financial interest and that they are appearing only in their private capacity. I appreciate your willingness and your board's willingness to be transparent. I appreciate that. We have two issues here. Thank you.
okay.
I didn't
I
meet
think
with the
we've-
board, just so we know. There was no scheduling with me going before their board.
We
You
know,
asked a question.
and we understand there is a question, and that was part of the reason why I tried to stress what the purpose of looking at the next agenda item was, is that we would have the opportunity to ask these questions as a council. And I think that we understand that maybe it wasn't handled 100% the way we would all prefer, but let's move on. And I have a quick question. Patricia, if they provide rosters, do we have the ability to recuse that information so that it wouldn't ever be exposed to open records?
Anything that we have possession of is going to be a public record. It would depend on the request and the type of information they were seeking, what we would disclose. That's what the Open or Public Information Act basically gives us the guidelines for. Generally speaking, with juveniles, we don't give a lot of information.
Okay.
So we would not give addresses.
I just wanted to make sure we were protecting. Okay.
But rosters are made public. US AAA, they have several rosters.
Are rosters made public, Steve?
Yeah, not, names and addresses is where it gets, they are definitely not out there.
And,
Okay.
and the teams they play for.
Well,
Well-
the problem I have is no one can answer how many people played in the fall. Can you answer that? How many? 404.
And we know how many live
And
in
how
Trophy
how
Club.
many?
And we've disclosed all that information to Greg.
How many?
pursuant to his
How many
request.
played in Trophy Club?
Well, I did
Or how
forward all
many
those
lived in-
questions.
38%, I think, lived in Trophy Club.
Of 404. That was in the fall.
Yeah, excluding select. With select numbers were a little bit higher.
How about in
and-
the spring? Do you have that number?
Yeah, this was just at the rec, and I would suspect that the percentage would be comparable. When you add, did I say just select? Excluding select. So the 600 that Steve just mentioned excludes that. So all in, fall, spring, around 1,000. Rec, add another 400 for select. So overall TCR YBA, we support about 1,400 kids. Over fields that we have.
In the fall and spring.
Right. And that's been growing modestly, but it has been growing, probably commensurate with some of the town growth. But, I'm at signups. People come in from all over and say, hey, we hear a lot of good things about your organization, your facilities, the way it's run, the way it's managed. I live in Justin, or I live in Argyle, or I live in Flower Mound, or wherever. I want to come play with you or with your organization. So, yes, ma'am.
I do have a question, because I know some of the question is about the percentage of children or kids or young people from Trophy Club versus those coming in to Trophy Club. Now, it's my understanding that the Trophy Club Roanoke is a partnership. Is that correct? So that the children and people play both in our fields as well as Roanoke. Is
In
that right?
the-
So my question is Roanoke having the same issue about percentage of kids in their town playing on their fields?
I believe the answer to that is no. And to
Why would that be?
And to,
Why would they not care?
probably because, we leverage their fields on a very limited basis, primarily for the T-ball, right, Steve? you know, a very small percentage of our organization leverages their fields. But we, at the request of others, when this whole $10 per head incremental increase was proposed, we felt it prudent to reach out to the leadership of Roanoke to say, hey guys, you know, this is coming down. What do you think? Do you want to turn around and jump in on this or not? And they're like, listen, we're not even interested in that. We're worried about playing ball, keeping our fields going, attracting as many people as we can, and having a good, solid program without potentially getting into the nickel and diming conversations. And I'm not saying that we're doing that, because there were trade-offs with the agreement to, you know, walk away from the 5,000 and add the $10 per person. But you know, they're a partner with us, and we have a good working relationship with them, and we certainly hope that we continue that. We thought there might be some risk with that, with the $10 increase. Hey, we're going to charge Roanoke kids an extra $10. But they initially were like, whatever, just, you guys, you know, let's just keep it going.
And I spoke with them too.
Yeah.
They weren't interested.
Did I articulate that properly, Adam, in context?
Mayor, I don't see why it matters. I don't think, in my personal opinion, and this is just my comments on this, I don't think we need a roster. I don't really care. Trophy Club is part of a larger community. I mean, South Lake has ball fields and kids from all over play there, and
they
Keller has some.
They charge
and
out of
we
district
have
rates.
some, and we're
Well, I mean, every community.
we're part of a larger community. I don't really care where the kids come from. I just like to see the fields utilized. We have great facilities.
And I would,
that's just my stance.
and to your
on it.
point, I would hope that, I mean, I'm before you guys on a fairly regular basis when certain issues come up, and you know, I've been a resident of Trophy Club for 15 years, and I've been president of this association for several, and I've been part of this board for 10. I have a reputation to uphold, and I would hope that if I told you that 38%, which to me is not a great number, that's probably going to support those that are looking to make an argument to levy an additional fee for someone that doesn't live here. I would hope that you would respect the integrity of the information I'm provided, because I would have nothing to gain to falsify that. I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do that.
See, my concern is, and I'm the only one who has kids who actually are playing in one of the leagues.
Mhm.
And so my concern is not so much, we're spending a lot of money on those fields. $33,000 just in irrigation last year. And so my concern is, and one thing that I would like to offer is, if you're gonna have tournaments, charge gate fees for everybody but the rec league. That's, I mean, you're inclusive of Trophy Club to the rec league. So my feeling on this is you charge gate fees for everybody but the rec league.
And I would say that potentially might be a good idea, and there are probably 50 other decent ideas that we should consider potentially after good thought, good analysis. With regard to the expenses associated with the park, most of us in this room had a hand in voting to have the bond election to deck $5 million up against that, and I highly doubt that with that proposal and the approval of that there wasn't significant analysis spent on what it's going to cost to maintain, regardless of whether or not we have an association. Those fields are there. There's an expectation to maintain them, including water, lights if the kids are out there, and general maintenance. So to me, the $30,000 that you refer to really should come as no surprise. That's part of cost of doing business.
I have another question, and I'm wondering if it's because Trophy Club is in a unique situation in that we're in a consolidated school district. So does that add to the influx of, and I mean, the people we're a region. We're not a South Lake, Carroll, or South Lake. And you understand what I'm saying? So does that have a tendency to draw more people into our system of our association? That's the question.
I think there's a number of reasons that our program has grown over the years. It's a combination of facilities, what you just mentioned, the overall organization and management of our association. We recently conducted and concluded a major survey that got a lot of thought and input from parents and coaches and others. I think it's a combination of things, and I think when we look at the fact that 38% of TCR YBA is comprised of TCR kids only. There's no and I'm not telling you everyone in this room is very smart, but there's no question that the people that make up the other 62% are coming here. They're looking at our properties. They're looking at houses. They're looking at our Byron Nelson High School right up the street. They're spending money in Roanoke. They're spending money in Trophy Club to the extent that we have the facilities to support that. And it's a win-win for everyone, as far as I'm concerned. It's a positive image for our town.
Well, we're still spending a lot of money,
Sure.
And I think that one of the things that I would like is, I'm not as concerned about a specific roster. I understand your concerns, but if there were reports that gave us the numbers and the percent of the town of each of, all of the individuals or the children registered for rec, as well as the towns, because that's part of what I believe we weren't able to get for this select league. Now, do you just have the two? You have rec and select?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that's a reasonable thing for us to know.
So was the request that we supply you not only what we've already given you, which was the percentage of those two organizations that comprise Trophy Club kids only, but to expand that to look at the other 62% and break that out to say 5% are from Grapevine, 15%.
I don't care about the percentages, just give me the numbers.
We've given you that, Madam Mayor.
For how many are from each, we can calculate
Yes.
percentages.
Yes.
How many are from each town?
Yes, we've given that to Greg. Well, not from each town. We've told you how many are from Trophy Club, but we haven't
Right, but
we haven't gone out and looked at the other 62% and said, okay, this other 62%, we've got 15 other cities combined with that. No, we haven't done that analysis, nor do I think we have the bandwidth to do it, to be honest with
do
you.
you not have your roster in a database?
Steve?
Yeah, I go to the truck right now, pull my laptop out, probably have it for you in 15 minutes.
That's what I thought. It's just a matter of,
Okay.
Yeah, we had it to give Councilman Lamont, how many were from Trophy Club, so obviously we had to, look at all the data, but.
right. And I just think it would be helpful for us to, and I'm not asking you to give me that information right this second, but I would suggest that's part of what we would want to provide to Adam
And the park board.
and the park board, right?
I think one of the things you have to look at in this discussion, and quite frankly, I'm not interested in a list of who's on what team. But I think what we have to look at is if we have out of district or out of town participants on it, in some ways you have to say, well, if they are out of district or out of town, and if I want to go, I want to take my child there and participate in their programs, what type of comparison do we have in costs? If there is an exchange going on, if there's no charge for the other cities where the kids are participating, I have a hard time standing up and saying, oh, well, in that case, I'm going to charge you for being here because you're not being charged for being there. I think there's a little bit of balance on the scales that you have to look there. Now, when you look at that. Now, on the other side of the equation, we do support the fields with tax dollars. And so you have the same equation there for the people who live in Trophy Club and pay those taxes. that you would have at the swimming pool for in-town or out-of-town rates. Now, when it comes to your particular group, where you do have them from all over, then you get back into the question is, if I charge them $10 to play in Trophy Club, do they play in Justin? Do they play in Roanoke? Do they also pay $10 to play in Roanoke? And so,
No, that's what
It's
he
a-
just
it's a-
said they don't.
yeah, and so it's a tough balance. But if you're going to look at out-of-district rates, then I think you just say, these are what the rates are, and if it's 38%, it's 38%, and if it's 75%, it's 75%. That's the rate that you charge.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
First of all, Danny, South Lake, not every child can play there. They only allow 2 to a team, and they charge $5 more, just for the record. The other thing is, I think, Adam, not trying to say this in a negative way, but I think everybody underestimated how much the fields would cost to maintain when we did the park bond.
No, actually, we didn't hit the numbers we gave. We actually gave a higher increase than we actually
Well, did you
hit.
count everything as far as the, because you keep saying 100,000, I still think it's 184,000 when you put all those numbers together.
Well, it is 184.
Oh, it is one, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing is the select teams are less of a percentage. And I understand that, but it's not 38% for the
Well,
the
that's
select.
No, it's
reason I
more.
asked.
When you said, and I stepped away for a sec, when you say it's less of a percentage, are you comparing?
Trophy Club kids.
Wasn't Select more?
Yeah, I think we're about 50%.
Yeah, it was more. It was more. The Select kids from TC only are north of what the rec guys are, and I think it was 50 or so %.
Well, I might have read it wrong, but I thought it was a lower percentage. Well, that's good.
It's above.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
One of the principal variables that you have to consider in this particular piece of this discussion is the fact that Keller and Westlake, or Keller and South Lake and Grapevine, we don't have the population that those communities have, and they can sustain their own leagues. We can't. We are a conglomeration of several smaller communities. We have the facility, certainly, as does Roanoke, to entertain a rec league or a what do you call them, a select league, select teams. We have those facilities, and we're very proud of those, and we're glad we do, because there is some benefit of getting people from out of town into town and getting their resources and letting them help pay through sales tax and that kind of thing. But you just need to keep in mind that we're not a population center like those larger towns that you're comparing to that do charge a surcharge. We are that regional league made up of all the smaller communities to make those leagues viable and sustainable.
But that's why I say that I think that rec league, any tournament in Trophy Club, they should play free.
They do. Well,
But
the
any
majority of, well, that's Select, right, Steve?
Yeah, the only real tournament is. the
Excuse
All-Star
me,
tournament.
if you're going to speak, can you come to the microphone, please? It's okay, come to, it's just that we
It's
have
just,
to be
it's
able
for,
to.
it's for recording purposes. For the folks when they view the videotape, we need you to have you near a microphone,
Yeah.
because it doesn't pick up back there.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, Steve Smith, I'm-
He's our secretary for the board.
Right.
baseball board.
There's really no rec tournaments other than the rec league tournament at the end of the season. Now, there is an all-star tournament that are made up of rec teams across the, area, but there's no real per se rec tournament other than the league end of season tournament. And it's not a profit type tournament or a
But that's-
fee-based tournament.
Free to play in that.
Yeah, it's just the same teams that played in the rec league.
Again, that's why, but rec or selective. Select has that great a percentage, then I don't think either should have to pay a gate fee in any tournament. But somebody outside that comes in from Midland or Tulsa or somewhere, I think they should pay a gate fee. But our people shouldn't have to pay a gate fee in their own community.
Well, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but in all, if not the vast majority of the Select tournaments that are played here in using our fields, that they essentially play for free because they work concessions, they do volunteer, and those costs are essentially offset. So yes, they have to put in a little sweat equity, but they're given the opportunity to play for a minimal or no charge.
That's our teams you're talking
Yeah,
about?
Trophy Club select team. So thanks, Steve. We have baked that into our thought process, and we've given those kids the opportunity to play for nothing. You know, a tournament is usually, could range from $300, $400 to $600, $700. So divide that by 10 kids, 11 kids, $60, $70 a kid, and that adds up. Trust me, my son's been playing for years, and it may not sound like a lot, but it adds up. It
And
really does.
one more question I have of you. I noticed in your list of questions that you had approached staff about doing maintenance on the field. Can you expand upon that?
Sure. I don't remember a list that I submitted. Maybe it was part of a response.
Responses, I think.
Maybe it was part of a response. Yeah, there have been occasions where, particularly in adverse weather situations, where, for example, we've got games lined up all weekend, starting Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, and maybe we were rained out a couple weeks before, and it was just an absolute disaster, and now all of a sudden we're way backed up, and we're having to cancel practices to do makeup games and this and that. There's been occasions where I've called Adam to say, Adam or Tony, I can mobilize 15 board members. We will come out there with our shorts and our jeans and our rakes and our wet vacs. I've actually sucked water out of a third base before just to try to make the fields playable for the next day when the expected forecast is conducive to that. Meaning we got some wind, we got some sun, we might be able to pull it off. We'll certainly try. Give us 2 or 3 fields. I'll have 20 guys, 15 to 20 guys out there, and we'll set up lights, and we'll work till midnight if necessary. And that's happened before. But and I don't argue with the position of the town on this. These are their fields. We have certain expectations of the way they maintain them, and the last thing we want to do is go in there and mess something up. So the standard response over the past couple of years has been, thanks, Chuck, but we're going to manage it ourselves. Adam, is that right?
That's correct.
And I'm not going to argue that.
I think I can add a little bit. What Chuck's saying is accurate. There's occasions where they help out, where we're run behind. We can't. Tournaments are going to be one of them. But anytime you have staff, volunteers are always helpful. But you can't set your base as the volunteer, because then it's 100%. It can't be they change over one year and they can't do it the next year. So they'll help, but they're not the base. Baseball's not the base for maintenance. In other words, they'll lend aid. They help with trash. They help with things like that. But it's really the overage they help with, not a base product, if you were. You know, in other words, when
Have we denied their overture to help out, though, in those kind of situations?
No, we haven't
So
denied it.
it's worked out.
We haven't
so that
denied
you
it.
helped or no? Chuck, I'm asking you, has it been that way, that you've made that
You know,
invitation to help and done so?
I think you're putting him on the spot, Mike.
I'd have to go back and check my emails, Mr. Sly.
The other thing I'd like to state for council is, earlier I just want to clarify, when you were talking populations in different areas and, you know, where they all come from, the one thing, because when I came to Trophy Club, it was a complete different creature, because soccer, this is even more true of, it's a multi-city school system, and this is the feeder program to NISD. So all these kids right now are feeding to Byron Nelson. So it's literally, when you talk of population, you're talking all the cities that are in the school district feed right now all the way up into Byron Nelson. And so soccer even goes, I believe, farther than baseball as far as their region, because they're no longer even this. They actually are greater Northwest. So, and some of those cities provide facilities too. One of the things I'd say, and it's just for this council for thought, is right now, in the beginning when I first came here, actually the Trophy Club numbers were definitely higher than all the other cities percentage-wise. As the population centers for other areas grew, the Trophy Club numbers went down. You're probably going to see a little spike because you've had all this new housing. But I would also say this, you're out of land. So in the future, and practice facilities are paramount. You got to have them. you're going to have to see those other cities step up to provide facilities because you're done here. So that's something I would say that when you're looking at long-range planning, those other cities will have to come forward to bring on more fields. Roanoke has indicated to me that there's soccer fields in their future that they're going to bring on. And soccer's the one, they're not hit, Matt left, but they're busting at the seams for practice facilities. So you're looking at other cities that will have to step up in the future because you're maxed out on land here.
Yeah, but you need to understand that my twins played a third of their games in Justin, a third of their games in Roanoke, a third of their games here, so it was spread out.
Yes.
Baseball's not that way. So,
And
just
Go ahead.
so you understand.
just so we know, as far as soccer, where those baseball fields are, they were supposed to be soccer fields, correct? Yeah.
There was a question of whether they were,
They were
I think they were, yes.
houses that were sold, they were soccer fields. And it's because there was a problem with the core that they couldn't put the baseball fields somewhere else.
No.
Yeah.
That's not.
It
I
wasn't-
was intimately involved in it.
Those,
Yeah, but
The-
it-
the-
Difference
the
doesn't
original
match where they're
plan-
at now.
Yeah. I was intimately involved in this. The original plan was soccer fields. Don't forget, we're talking concept plans before any of this is turned over to us. And that was the original plan. It only lasted for about 7 or 8 months. It got shown once or twice, though. Then Roanoke came on and developed a soccer facility, and it became ridiculous for us to go follow a soccer facility. So it basically became baseball. But that is the story of what happened. The baseball fields, as far as the core was, that was the old dog park. The dog park where it currently sits was supposed to have baseball fields on it. Now that ran afoul
they
of the
threw a
core.
monkey wrench into the whole deal.
Yes, that changed the plan where basically that park that used to be Northeast Park and then became Freedom, that was supposed to have baseball fields and a dog park. Well, what happened was there was a core easement on the property. It was undevelopable for any sports activity is what happened. So I'm saying that was.
Now, have we charged, now, I know you advertise no gate fees. I don't, maybe you can explain what I think I know what the advantage is to doing that. But do we charge anybody gate fees? Because I've been trying to get what the revenue was for this year.
Right.
Have we,
that's-
any tournaments where we charge gate fees?
I don't know. Do we charge any, may I ask Steve to help support me on this? He's got a kid in select and I don't, so.
James really can answer these questions. What I can say is,
Well, we
we-
should know.
we don't bill it as a gate fee. There are agreed upon amounts that we pay the town for those fields during tournaments. Now, we could back into a gate fee from that, but this last tournament, games were played on 18 different fields. Justin, Grapevine, Colleyville, Southlake, I'm not sure all of them. There's 18 different fields. So even if there was a gate fee, it wouldn't all be going to Trophy Club because we have to pay those other associations, those other cities for their fields, just like we did. We just paid them a fee for those fields.
But if there's, just help me with the operation end of it. If there's, say, 130 teams and 72 are here, we know what that number is. So that would be the gate fee just for those 72 teams. Now, we wouldn't charge 130 teams. Am I missing something there?
Well,
I'm giving you odd numbers, but whatever the number is, doesn't matter.
yeah, you probably have to look more at how many games were played on the fields because a team may play 3 different parks over a whole weekend, depending on what bracket they're in. They may play
could be
pool play
playing
in
3
Trophy
different
Club, but they may
towns.
play bracket play in Southlake.
So
But
is it
we are,
better to
basically,
charge
the
a
fields
per
are being
game?
paid.
I can help. I can help. Okay, here's the difference. A gate fee is just a different type of rental fee. What James and I sat down and went through was the difference between gate fees, because you have to realize baseball is really the only one we can't always have staff to monitor every team. So why we sort of like rental fees is we're renting our fields. If you use them, you use them, but we're collecting the money for that time slot per game. So what we've done was we did the analysis of it, and we do need to increase our rental fees to come up to equalize to the 125 gate fee. We need to come up a few bucks, and then you'll have the equalization between a gate fee and a rental fee, and there's no difference. The town will make more money. It's not an incredible amount, but it'll definitely go up. And so if you raise your base rental fee, and I will say this, we really don't rent to anyone anymore other than a tournament situation. Soccer, we've pretty much quit renting completely because the fields can't handle it. If we start renting to, one thing you have to realize when we rent to outside organizations, they don't want it for one time. They want a reoccurring slot schedule, and we can't do that. So as I was saying is, when we do the rental fees, if we do make an adjustment, one of the things I would recommend is we bring up our base rental fees to anybody, these outside associations. And then that would equalize the same as a gate fee, but we have a little easier time controlling the field because they pay us for all the slots. We don't have to go and determine and have staff out there and determine, hey, how many teams and what's our breakdown depending on where they play. So we sort of maximize our money because in these, I would say baseball does act as our agent. They're instrumental in both acquiring the tournaments and monitoring the tournaments. Now, for instance, right now we have set up probably 3 tournaments, which we'll be bringing before council in January to get some waivers probably. Some time waivers. Yes.
As
remember
to what? Money?
No.
Oh.
Waivers as far as they
All
may
starts.
run longer. Remember we agreed to that? No, but I'm saying that was the agreement. And Triple Crown now, they have a different setup and they're used to paying gate fees wherever they go. Because it's the standard. But I talked to them, I said, listen, it might be that we impose rental fees on you instead. And I told them, I said, and in the future, if there's some additional maintenance I feel that is fair, would they be willing to pay it? And they said, yes, they would. And they're a pretty big organization out of Colorado, 60 employees. But just so you answer, that's the difference. The gate fee is sort of just a different type of rental fee.
Now,
I think I'd like to suggest, I'm sorry, we're going to, that we have Park Board look at it, and you and Park Board and the boards, we look at having some reports for the distribution of the towns. So, because one of the things is there's so much that goes on and is being said without clear understanding, without clear data. If you have clear data, it's much easier to make a good decision, or hopefully to make a good decision, but to know what you're talking about. And I think that's really a lot of it. We haven't always had that. So if we go ahead and take a look at this and look at how we might want to modify it, working together, how we might want to modify it so that we do recognize that we do spend a lot of money, and how we need to maybe tweak some of the elements and then justify it.
Council, if I could, and I appreciate those comments very much so. What I would like to get is some head nodding in terms of this strategy. Provide for the minor adjustments to the existing contract that we've talked about, the fees, those 3 items that were asks that their board has agreed to provide, get us through this particular season. And I mean, you said it just a minute ago, there is a ton of information. There is a ton of ways of doing it, and a lot of that research has been done. But let's vet this thing through the park board. Councilman Lamont has come up with a ton of questions that are very applicable to what we ought to be considering, what the council ought to be considering at that time. But what we need to do now, and what I would propose is on January 6th, we can even put it on the consent agenda, put the existing contract with those few modifications on the agenda so that they can move forward with this particular season. And hopefully by this summer, we'll have some legitimate recommendations from Park Board to move forward on a permanent basis.
Okay, I would like to have one understanding in this discussion, and that's that council inputs. Council acts as a body. If you have an individual council input, that council input goes to the town manager. If you have a question for the town manager, it goes to the town manager, and he can flow it to his staff. And that way we don't wind up before Park Board or anybody else expressing our personal opinion and having that personal opinion thought of as council policy.
and I agree, and hopefully we'll do that with TC Exchange also.
I just want to add, y'all are a great addition to the town. I mean, you do a lot of good out here, and I know that even when we were working on some landscaping design, that you came to the fore, and we appreciate that. I'm going to echo Councilman Rose's comments that we appreciate your transparency, but I want to say going forward, you are not obligated to answer to any of us individually. I agree that we are a body, And as noble as the questions may be, and as correct as they may be, we have certain procedures that we need to follow. So I would just say in the future going forward, your obligation is nil. I believe I'm correct. You can check with the town attorney.
Yeah, and I'm assuming she'll validate what you just said, and I appreciate that because I wasn't really sure what our obligations were or what they weren't. Again, I wanted to come forward as trying to be a cooperative player here, and I did inform Adam and others that, hey, FYI, there's some communications going on here, and I believe that it's important that everybody's on the same page and in the loop, because I felt a little uncomfortable with the fact that I'm getting questions from one individual. I'm not sure what political protocol and all these things are that you guys know better than me. All I knew is that I wanted to try to be supportive and give information. At the same time, I was a little, are we doing the right thing here, or should we involve others? And I involved a couple of people that are in this room, Adam and Mr. Sly, just to make sure that there was kind of that they knew about this.
Thank you. One thing, the 3 items that that Greg had suggested we put in were the audited financial, the
Background checks for
background checks,
everyone.
and the third one was the roster. What I
I
would
think
like
that was
to-
it.
Was
there
the
any-
third one the roster?
Yes.
Right. So would it be acceptable to, instead of providing rosters, have separately for select and
Percentages,
have the breakdown of the
numbers.
number of
The town,
children by town?
sure.
city.
Right, we don't need it by address.
Yeah,
Well,
just by town.
Just by
Does
town?
that work?
Okay, that's
So
fine.
That would be a compromise. There's no confidentiality issue
Yeah,
there.
then I think that's fine. Let me just state that I need to, we had a board meeting last night, but we didn't get into this level of detail. I don't think there's gonna be an issue to say, we're gonna provide audited financials, to a particular individual or individuals,
So, Adam,
right,
Provide
and that there's clearly some confidentiality things with regard to that. I think we're okay with that. With the background checks, that's easy. We're doing it already. And then with the providing the percentages of kids, not only in TC, specific to RAC and Select, I think we can broaden that and give you everything
Patricia,
without any issue. I don't.
if they give us audited financials, are they subject to open records the same way?
They would be. I can't think off the top of my head of any exception that would.
They would have to be a part of the agenda packet if we're gonna discuss it, if it's gonna be a part of the contract.
I mean, if we have a contract with them and we're asking them for audited financials, then they're no different than any other vendor that we have that provides those things. Now, I mean, Public Information Act provides that you can mark certain things proprietary. I'm just not sure in your circumstance what that would be. So, I'm not
Did we
sure
not
that.
take that under advisement?
I think
I
we
think
should
that we-
probably take a look at that, and maybe you can give me some description of what that consists of for a baseball association or soccer association.
What
and
consists of?
with the audited financials, what's that gonna involve? Just how much money is spent and.
We're already spending that.
the question is why, what you need to work with Patricia is what is it about it that you feel should be confidential and why?
No, I think he was referring to rosters. He wasn't.
No,
he
we're
was
talking about
talking
financials
about
right now.
financials.
I'm not suggesting that we're not in a position, I mean, we were prepared to sit down with Greg at Fuzzy's last week and go over it with him. We don't have any issue with providing it. There was just some concern with regard to, hey, we're gonna email an electronic copy. Who knows where it's gonna land? Might someone have a wrong purpose? I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
I understand.
providing
just-
the document to the town, it becomes a public document if asked for. Right.
That's my
One of the
concern.
things that you may want to consider in the contract is similar to what we have in other contracts with vendors, is that with notification, the town has the right to inspect certain financial statements and books
And not take copies.
and not take a copy, but they're allowed to go on site, or they're
Yeah.
able to come on site here.
And that's
we're
what I
able
think
to
we
go
were
over
trying to
those
do with
things.
Mr. Lamont, is to, let's talk through this versus just sending you a tax form. And I would also strongly recommend, this is for you guys to take it or leave it, but any type of request that is made of baseball, I know tonight's been primarily a baseball discussion, but I think it should be consistent with all of our associations, regardless of the agenda or the motivation or the potential resulting benefits for not only baseball or football or soccer, but for the city. My recommendation is that you be consistent with your approach, your questions, the input and feedback that you're getting, because people are going to ask me, hey, why are you doing this when you're not doing it with football, and why aren't you doing it with soccer, who's got twice as many kids? I'm not trying to
That's
bring
exactly what we were talking about, is that we would
General.
have the Parks Board look at overall sports.
Yeah.
And to look at the
I
total.
just think
and
that would
have
save
numbers.
everyone a little heartache down the road.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly,
Just-
baseball is the priority and the focus right now, because the majority of the spend for your your maintenance is tied to baseball. I get that, versus soccer and football, because all you got to do is mow, right, and maybe water a little bit, but.
I think Adam might have a problem with that, but.
Anyway,
Chris,
Some
audited
electricity.
financial statements are basically in just about every baseball contracting, whether it be Grapevine or South Lake. They're all in there.
I would suggest, I think you're correct. They're a 501c3. So you can audit
That's a
any
good point.
501c3s, I believe. And that was the old terminology in our old contract. Wasn't providing financials. The old baseball contract, there was one, was to audit, the ability to audit. And that was for soccer as well. And I just want to make sure from a staff standpoint, Mike, Town Manager Sly, that I know what we're doing when we leave here. Because, I just want clarification for Park Board to tell them. So it's right now we're looking at residency, just general demographics. What percentage comes from what city? Okay? And we're talking about, by the way, the contract would have an end date because we're asking for an extension. And I've talked to baseball on theirs. I haven't talked to soccer. And they would want to go through almost the end of June. So that would be the end date of that 6 months. And then we're talking $10 a head that they're already implementing. And we're the background checks. That's what I've heard. And that's for all, in other words, from Park Board standpoint, I would tell them they need to be doing this to all organizations, all three.
Yeah,
Is that what
I have a question. When do you start, like we're saying now, well, we need to do something because you're already in the middle of, when do you start registration for the next season?
We opened spring registrations a couple of weeks ago online. For fall, I think is your question. We usually start playing, practicing, tryouts. I'm going to say early midsummer. So-
Online is when you would,
Yes.
online. So therefore, we need to have this resolved
Yes.
completely before
I'd say
June.
May.
Fall
Yeah.
registration.
May. Okay?
Yes, yes.
I'm not
yes,
talking
ma'am.
about,
Right.
we have an interim for right now, but
Right.
we need to have the whole, with a recommendation in time for us to act on it prior to the end of May, or May.
Yes.
Okay, right? Does
Yes,
that work
ma'am.
with your schedule?
I think so.
Probably works as well with soccer.
Madam Mayor, I know we're running a little bit late, but you have a speaker for this item.
But we're in a workshop.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. My bad.
I'm sorry, I can
Gotcha.
speak when we have a,
I was out of order. No,
okay,
you're exactly right.
Is that all?
that's it.
Thanks again,
Thank you
everyone,
very
for your
much.
time. I appreciate it.
Okay. That's the end of our workshop. Are we ready to go right into executive session, or does anybody want to put?
Take a break.
Let's take a quick 5 minutes.
Okay, we're going to take a break for 5 minutes, really quick, and then we'll go into our regular session. Oh, Patricia. Can we go ahead? Can we go ahead with the pledge and invocation? Patricia's not back yet. We can go ahead and start, right? Okay. We will convene into regular session at 7:15. The invocation will be offered by Adam Adams. The pledges will be led by Stephen Seidel. Please rise.
Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for the ability to gather here tonight. We thank you, Lord, and we pray for wisdom and knowledge in our discussions tonight and deliberations for these people that are elected by this township. We're thankful, Lord, that we can conduct our business in a fair and equitable manner and, Lord, not make things personable as we achieve the highest results for this community, Lord, and represent the characteristics you would expect us to have. We thank you for the blessings of this town, Lord, and we thank you for the position of the ability to meet in this type of institution tonight and the freedoms we have in this country. We pray for those abroad that defend this country, both abroad and here at home. And we thank you for all your blessings. In the name of Jesus, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Go Bobcats.
Thank you, council.
Okay. Our first item will be citizen presentations, which is an opportunity to address the council on any matter whether or not it is on the agenda. We're not permitted to take action on or discuss any presentation made to the council concerning an item that is not on the agenda. We will hear discussion on specific agenda items as we approach that item. And you may speak up to 3 minutes. And you need to complete a speaker's form to do so. And we have, we have Larry Hoover.
Larry Hoover, 1118 Berkshire Court, Trophy Club, Texas. This is in regard to the discussion over the baseball contract. If you recall, when the bond was passed by the residents of this town, the estimated cost to the town was going to be 11 cents on the tax rate, including the debt. 5 cents for maintenance. It worked out to 2 cents. There are things that you need to do to look at the big picture that were unique in that this town has 4 schools in it, 2 elementaries, a middle school, and a high school. And if I was living in Roanoke and my kid was going over here to elementary school or middle school, I'd want, and he would want to play with his friends, okay, in Trophy Club. You're not going to be able to collect money to pay for everything in this town with fees. Roanoke charges me $10 a year to use the library. Does that cover their cost? No way. Okay? I think you need to look at it from the perspective of what our town is all about. And it's not about collecting fees. Okay? Why do people move here? Because we have great schools, it's a great place to live, it's safe, and we have great parks. Okay? When Stephen goes out and sells this town, does he go out and say, well, we've got great parks, but it's going to cost you $10 every time you walk through the gate? No, that's not good. I think that's foolish. So it's $184,000. You know, that's okay. We passed the park bond, we built the fields, we have to use them. And I think that we need to quit arguing about charging people who don't live here an extra fee when their kids go to the same school. That's just ridiculous. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Did we have any other speakers?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if I could, I'd like to tie up about a minute and a half. Have a small statement I'd like to make. In the spring of 2011, shortly after filing for re-election to council, I was asked if I was willing to be considered for a vice presidential position in a national organization. I agreed. Normal progression would lead to the presidency of that organization in 2014. In the fall of 2011, I was elected second vice president of the Gray Eagles. From that point forward, knowing the demands of the Grey Eagle presidency in 2014, when asked if I would run for Trophy Club Council re-election in 2014, the answer has always been no. In the fall of 2012, I was elected first vice president. Last August, at the National Convention in Anchorage, I was elected president of the Grey Eagles and officially take office in January. As I anticipated, the time demand between the two positions grow more untenable and must be resolved. Therefore, I want to make it perfectly clear at this point, I will not be a candidate for re-election in 2014. My priorities must be with the national organization. I want to thank those who continue to encourage me to run for council in 2014, but the answer must remain no. Thank you.
The Grey Eagles?
Yes, it's
Would you please explain?
the Grey Eagles are a national organization of senior and retired American airline pilots. We're about 3,200 in the group.
I know we're not supposed to respond, but congratulations and good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. The next item is the consent agenda. All matters listed as consent agenda are considered to be routine by the town council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion of these items. If it is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. So have a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Okay, that is approved. All right, item number 7, presentation and discussion of update on the blue ribbon panel. Mike?
Madam Mayor, we have the chair of the Blue Ribbon Panel, Jay Como, to update to council.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. And Mr. Sly, just this agenda item 15 is, I'm off the hook on that one, right? I'm on 7.
15?
Yeah, the second page, I saw
Manager's
the
update.
report out on the
Yes.
subcommittees. I just want
Oh.
to make sure I'm in the right place at the right time.
Yes, you're at the right place at the
Okay,
right time.
thank you. So it's been a while since you appointed the Blue Ribbon Panel, and much work has been done. So I'm here representing the 2 subcommittees, representing the panel itself as the chairman. I was appointed by my colleagues as the chair. Nicole Fontaine was appointed the vice chair. We then split into 2 subcommittees. The finance subcommittee chaired by myself, and the organizational governance subcommittee chaired by Mrs. Fontaine. And so we've had a lot of work there. I wanted to provide just a status of what we've done since you put us in action, and where I see us going, and potential timelines, and then I'll pause for questions. So one of our agenda items was to liaise with the MUD CAC. So we've appointed several members to go to the CAC meetings, and there's been some dialogue back and forth between the 2 groups. And in the last week and a half, from a finance perspective, the finance subcommittee has met twice with the MUD CAC, and there's a very extensive model that the MUD CAC has put together, and what the Blue Ribbon Panel members, particularly the finance subcommittee members, have tried to do is identify where we might think there are variables, but ultimately what we'd like to agree between the 2 appointed bodies is if the action which would be taken where the MUD would join forces with the town, what would that mean with the Westlake leaving and the revenue picture. So I would tell you that there are, I wouldn't call them discrepancies, but variances that we've looked at. I've recently kicked off an email to the MUD CAC asking if they could reforecast the model. I'll just give you a couple examples of where we might see things a little differently. The bonds that will be issued for the maintenance and the upgrade, the TCEQ upgrades to the water treatment facility, those were forecasted out at a 7% interest rate over a 20-year period. If you look at the 20-year bonds today, the national average for muni bonds is 3.85, and then the 30-year is 4.3, I believe, recently, up from 4.25. So that's a good example of where we think that there's a little bit of a discrepancy what we might forecast out versus what's on there at the 7% rate. Additionally, just another view on that, property valuations were forecasted against straight line over a 20-year period to gain the net present value calculations at 5%. So we asked that be taken down because we feel like that's kind of high. And then there's several other variables that we're working through. So ultimately, on the finance side, what we want to do is take a look at the model as it's produced and understood by the MUD CAC, and then the model with the variables that we've discussed from a Blue Ribbon subcommittee perspective, finance subcommittee perspective, and kind of see where we're at top end and low end. Ultimately, we think there's a number that a consequential number with Westlake going away, and we really need to identify what that is. On the governance side, much work has been done speaking to members of staff from both sides, both of the government entities, and I believe that subcommittee is probably close to wrapping up in the next 10 days with their opinion. And I can tell you one leading view at this point, and I won't show our cards too much, but is there seems to be at least a minority of that subcommittee that believes the fire department should be managed by one governing entity, not two. There's a lot of other details that will come out in our full report. So we will let the governance subcommittee finish their work. On my side, that I'm managing on the finance side, we'll complete the variable models, and then we'll put those two elements together and have probably at least one more, we call the big board, the entire, because we've been breaking into groups, the entire Blue Ribbon panel, probably early January, to discuss our findings collectively as a group, and then make our recommendation out to the town council respectively thereafter. A couple other items before I pause. A theme that I think has been discussed that we're looking into, and we discussed it on the finance side, is the potential of annexation of the PID by the MUD. We find that to be an intriguing option. The MUD CAC has found a way to compensate for the PID households that have already paid it's not the impact fee, but the assessment, I believe it's technically called, the $2,300 per house. And that would be charging a different rate on a go-forward basis for those residents, so they're not taking the burden of the debt previously issued. We find that to be a creative option. They're thinking that through. And so we feel that that's something that the town council should look at. We know that the MUD's looking at it. They've run models on it. And then we think that we'll have some dialogue on our final report out on what this means. I think that the landscape has changed from when the panel was appointed. The town of Westlake has come out, as we all know, and sent a letter. There's been a response. I think MUD is waiting a response from them. There's been talk of legislation at the House level. So a lot's changed, I think, since we were appointed to do this work, and we're going to try to incorporate the shifting landscape into our final report out and advise you as we see best on how to proceed from a citizen's perspective. That's my update for this evening.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a couple. In the model, and in your work in the model, I haven't reviewed the latest tapes. Want to see that there is want to find out if there's a difference in the wastewater treatment plant size in the model between the town-only option and the town and the Westlake option. One is 1,400 something equivalents, and the other one is roughly 2,800. So there should be a size difference in the plant. When you're looking, 28,
1,400?
yeah, 14,000. 14, yeah, thank you. It's nothing but a zero and a decimal point. 14,000, and I think it's 27,000 something between. It's in the engineering report, the preliminary engineering reports where that's found. And the other thing I'd like to know, if it's going to be in the model, is when you get the determination on the difference costs at those 2 points, to take a look at the impact of the tax rate, the federal income tax rate. I think they're using 28% in their model. We need to apply that back across the total cost of the bonded amount for the two options and see the difference there. Because I believe that when you look at the total payoff amount of the bonded amount and then take the 28% of it that would be lost if it goes revenue as opposed to standard bond, you're talking significant numbers.
Okay. Councilman Rose, I have a couple comments in that, if you'd like. So we did ask the question on the capacity issue if the upgrade happened with Westlake not being in the picture, and it seemed to be a variance, but not a material one. There was discussions of, and I'm not an expert on this, we know some folks in the audience are, but 1.75 MGDs And the way it was explained to us, if it's an $11 million project with Westlake, it might be 9 without, and those are my views or my words, but I think it's fairly close to what was discussed. In other words, the perspective we got was there wasn't a material difference from a capacity perspective. We'll take the taxation issue away, and we'll look more into that. I felt, just my own opinion, that the 28% rate was probably high. I think there's a lower level at 15%, and it perhaps should have been more blended at 20, but I didn't factor it back versus the elements that you said, so we'll take a look at that as well.
I think the discussion that I've seen so far on the tape, the application of the tax rate was only done as it impacts the PID. In that part of the equation, I think is where it's played. I don't think it's been played over in the other one. I could be wrong because, like I say, I'm not current
Okay.
on the most recent meetings. The plant size equation is a difficult one because this is getting pretty technical. But if you go to treat the 28,000, it takes 6 trains and an EQ basin. EQ basins, if I remember the report, are not super expensive. And that treats the roughly 28,000. If you treat 14,000, you would think that it would be half that size. It's not necessarily accurate because there may be some other players in it. And so I'm not sure exactly how all those cost differentials work because I haven't been down playing in the engineering numbers. And then there may also be a question, if you want to broaden that discussion even more, is if the town was to build it, if a town was to set and do it by itself, would it take the same approach and go with the MBR system? So it gets rather broad. I'm back.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Just,
Okay.
you'd mentioned about doing a cost analysis on the duplication savings, and you didn't mention it. I just would be hopeful that that would be a priority to get done, to see just how much we can save
Yeah, so
with the consolidation.
no, you're right, Councilman Lamont, and so we're working off, there are the original numbers that Mr. Sly produced, and those have been recast, and Mr. Seidel and I have spoken recently about getting further recast as part of the variable. So I oversight on the representation, but it's definitely happening.
Oh, Bill covered what I was going to ask.
Okay, I have a couple of questions.
You might have been more succinct.
Did anybody else have any?
I don't have a question.
Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead.
All right, you mentioned annexing the PID, the possibility, which is certainly a viable solution. My question is, do you see that in your study as an end game or an interim? And are you looking at it both ways?
Yeah. I'm not sure that we've gone that far out. It started to gain traction when we saw it forecast into the model.
Mm-hmm.
And so the board, the Blue Ribbon panel rather, hasn't had enough dialogue for me to represent that view from us to,
Okay.
as advisement to the town
Well,
council.
let me put it this way. Would you look at that
Yes.
if you can?
Yes, we are.
Because whether that is something that we would want to do, that, we'd want to do initially, but is that the long-term, is there something else after?
Yeah.
Okay? The other question I had is either your committee or the MUD looking at alternatives? Bill mentioned, the different sizes. I just have always been concerned about the fact that they came in with this high number, and anytime I've asked about any kind of alternative, was that the only way you could go? I haven't seen it. Has anybody costed out the alternatives?
So the alternatives for the facility, when we discussed it last
Yeah.
week, it was really, and I think Councilman Rose sort of mentioned my interpretation. I think there's a minimum threshold you have to get it at the facility to get to where you need to be TCEQ compliant. So there wasn't a major difference once you get there lifting to count for the capacity from Westlake. That's the way I understood it.
Okay.
So we discussed that alternative. The rest of the alternatives of all the financial models of what we've done on the finance subcommittee and went back and asked to reforecast. So I think the answer is that's exactly what we're looking at. And on the first question, this would be my opinion, not yet that of the panel, but I think it would be an important step in that those that are in the PID do not have the ability to vote their way, their opinion. And when the whole concept of annexation was brought up, I know that that brought some intrigue, because then you can control your destiny, and at this point, those can't. I'm one of them. I think it's probably an interim step that could be final, depending on many other variables. And so I think it could play both ways, but I will certainly work with my colleagues on the Blue Ribbon panel to get a wider view on that.
Right. Yeah, okay, I appreciate that. The one other one that I just thought of is, have you looked, or are you planning to look at the analysis that says what would be the number to make the MUD or the town whole for Westlake to leave? I know there have been projections from the MUD that are pretty high.
Right.
I just was wondering if you guys are doing any analysis on that,
So
or
what
looking at the assumptions.
So the answer is yes. What we plan to do is take, and there'll be a couple casts at that. There would be, from my view, there would be the MUD CAC perspective on that, which they've provided, and they've actually worked quite a bit on that model. And so it's evolved over time. And we're pretty familiar with the model as it stands today. To your point, what I've mentioned earlier, on the Blue Ribbon panel side of the house, we feel that to be a little bit, if not inflated, not entirely in agreement with some of the measures that are plugged in there. So what we're doing is we're taking the recast of that, and then we're working with the town staff to take a look at those savings, and ultimately that's what you derive. I think we'll find out that there'll be a gap, and the question is, how big is that gap, and then do we want to undertake that risk or not? But until we finalize the numbers, that's more speculation than any fact
Okay.
at this point.
Well, I certainly appreciate all that you're doing.
Oh, I'm so
It's
impressed.
amazing, so,
Thank you.
thank
Thank
It's
you.
been an honor serving thus far. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would just like to say, because Bill is the one who recommended the Blue Ribbon panel, and I've always believed that we just have some great representation of the town on that Blue Ribbon panel, and I think your presentation here continues to support that. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to number 8. Consider and take appropriate action regarding a request for approval of a preliminary plat, final plat, and subdividers agreement for Trophy Club Village Center located in the J. Henry Survey Abstract 529, having 2 lots and being 2.532 acres of land. The applicant is Claymore Engineering, represented by Matt Moore, on behalf of Trophy Club Village Center, represented by Ryan McGuire. And we will need a separate motion for each, the preliminary plat, the final plat, and the developers. Carolyn?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. And can I have the projector switched to the dais? Thank you. And lights. This is a 2.5 acre site located at Bobcat Boulevard and Parkview Drive. So Bobcat Boulevard, Parkview Drive, and this is the 2.5 acre site. We have Medlin Middle School to the west, the high school to the north, Independence Park East to the east. This other shaded area is going to be where the Montessori school may be developed someday, and then we've got the LDS Mormon Church at the corner of Bobcat and Trophy Club Drive. Aerial view, again, this is our site right here. High school to the north, Medlin Middle School to the west, the park to the east, Montessori site, LDS. So this 2.5 acres right here. The preliminary plat and preliminary grading and drainage have been reviewed by staff and the town engineer, and the plans meet the subdivision rules and regulations of the town. Likewise, the final plat and infrastructure construction plans have been reviewed and approved by staff and the town engineer, and also meet the town's subdivision rules and regulations. Although the developer is platting the entire site, only the first phase of the project, located on Lot 1, the southern lot, the southern end of the site, is being developed at this time. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered this request on November 21st, and by a unanimous vote, there were 6 commissioners present. There was 1 commissioner absent. By a unanimous vote of 6 commissioners, recommended approval of both the preliminary plat and the final plat. A developer's agreement for public infrastructure is included for your approval. The public infrastructure portion of this site consists of a small amount of water, sanitary sewer, storm drain, and paving as part of this project, and so a developer's agreement is needed. The applicant, Ryan McGuire, is here this evening to answer your questions, as is the town engineer, Mr. Rutledge. Staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat, final plat, and developer's agreement for this project. As the mayor mentioned, we do ask for a separate motion for each plat. The developer's agreement approval can be part of the final plat motion, but a separate motion is needed for the preliminary plat, please. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion?
Okay. I move to approve the preliminary plat for Trophy Club Village Center located in Henry J. Survey Abstract 259, having 2 lots. 529, excuse me. Good catch. Having 2 lots and being 2.532 acres of land.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Wait. Mike, would you just go over we had an exchange in emails today. Would this be the proper time to talk about it?
Next item.
Next one, okay.
We got to vote.
Okay. We approved the preliminary plat, the final plat, and the developer's agreement we can do as one?
With the final plat, yes,
There you
ma'am.
go. I move to approve the final plat and subdividers agreement for Trophy Club Village Center located in the J. Henry Survey Abstract 529, having 2 lots and being 2.532 acres of land.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Okay. You and I had an exchange in emails today.
Yes.
They're not in the mud nor in the PID, so they're out of district, and that might be the right terminology. But therefore, his water and sewer rates would be different, probably even higher.
That's correct.
And he technically doesn't have fire protection. Now, we realize that he's going to get covered, but I just want to make sure that he's aware of it, and that maybe you can explain why, because you have insurance issues and perhaps bank financing issues that...
There are actually 4 properties inside the town limits of Trophy Club. The 3 that Carolyn identified for you, this being one, the Montessori School and LDS. And the last property is at the end of Katy Lane, the Venable property, if you're familiar with the Venable estate. All of those properties are outside the MUD's purview. And as a result, each of these property owners has a decision to make, because the town is required to provide for public safety of every property in this community. As you know, MUD handles the fire component. The town handles the EMS component of the fire department. To date, each one of those property owners has a business decision to make. They can petition the MUD to be included inside the MUD district, in which case they would pay the MUD tax and pay their fair share of fire support, and be subject to the MUD in-district water and sewer rates. Or they can remain outside the MUD district and pay the MUD's water and sewer rates that are external to the district and
Out of district rates.
out of district rates. Thank you. That leaves the fire component with a big question mark. I can tell you that in all 4 of those instances, and I think the chief could step up and say the same thing. If any of those properties were to have a fire emergency, our fire department is going to respond. But the fact of the matter is, we have to treat these properties equitably across the board. If the property owners choose not to be annexed, then it'll be incumbent upon the town, I think, and I've had some preliminary discussion with the district manager and a couple of their board members, that we would have to initiate and solidify an interlocal agreement with the MUD to provide for those 4 properties, similar to what we did to the PID. And that could potentially include another emergency services assessment to make sure that they're paying for their fair share of the operations and maintenance budget of the fire department. They understand that. You know, unfortunately, we have this situation, but it is what it is, and we'll deal with it. But one way or the other, and I want to make sure that the property owner understands that they're going to have to pay their fair share of the fire component operations and maintenance budget. And it'll be done just like we do with every other property in town based on the value of that particular property. And it'll either be done through an assessment, potentially by the council, or if they elect to be annexed by the PID, they'll be paying the MUD tax.
Annexed by the MUD.
Annexed by the MUD, thank you. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but, so they would have to go into the PID, they couldn't come into the town?
No,
No,
they
no.
cannot be in the PID.
I mean,
The PID,
going into the MUD, they have to go into the PID?
No,
The
they
PID
would
is a
I thought that's what you
geographically
said.
defined area that is already
He said-
Acronyms will get me.
he said annexed into the PID. That
Annexed.
was an error.
Oh, it
He
was?
meant
Okay.
annexed into the MUD.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
yes.
Right.
Annexed to the MUD,
I have a question on that particular area.
sure.
And don't we have some sort of an agreement with Denton County? Would they fall under Denton County?
You wanna address
for
that,
our
Chief?
For our interlocal, we have an interlocal with Denton County, don't we?
That's correct.
We do have mutual aid agreement with unincorporated Denton County. The properties that Mike's talking about fall in the boundaries of our city limits, so they're not incorporated into the county.
When you
property.
said unincorporated, the discussion was over, thanks.
That's right. We are still responsible for providing for that public safety, and it's going to be one way or the other. I mean, and if the MUD doesn't, and I shared this with the MUD manager, if they don't want to enter into that interlocal agreement, then I'll reach out to Roanoke or someone else to provide that fire support for those 4 properties in our community. It makes sense that we would be able to arrange and agree to some kind of agreement with the MUD to provide those services. Is that clear, property owners?
I have a picture question because reading the commentary and so forth, where are the trash cans going to be there?
We'll point that out in the site
Oh,
plan
okay,
portion
good.
of this.
Okay, thanks.
Ryan has
That was
a
a real
couple of slides
conversation.
that'll make that a little bit clearer
Okay,
where
good.
they're located. There's one down here in this corner, and then we're not going to build phase 2 quite yet. That'll come in the future, but the one that's going to be put in with phase 1 is going to be down here in this
Okay.
corner.
All right, it's not like I thought it was. Okay.
And I think we have another slide. I don't have it on mine, but I
That's
believe
okay.
Ryan has one on his that'll make that clear.
I would like to make one comment on the package I received at council. I have never seen so much drainage information on a package in all my life. I was
You were in heaven, weren't you?
No, I wasn't. No. I was going through this stuff going, what is this? I've never seen this before. You know, it's like,
Okay. We have a motion and second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor? Okay, that's approved.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to item 9. Consider and take appropriate action regarding a request for approval of a site plan for Lot 1, Block B, Trophy Club Village Center. The application is Claymore Engineering on behalf of Trophy Club Village Center, represented by Ryan McGuire.
Thank you, ma'am. The applicant is planning to construct a one-story professional office building to be located on the southern lot of the property. So we're looking at this building right here. This states on here 8,000 square feet. The building will be 8,711 square feet. It will have a signage tower that is 45 feet, 3 inches in height. You can see it here on these this slide, but also it's shown on the elevation pages of the site plan package that you received, sheets A 3.0 and A 3.1. The building meets the town's masonry and elevation requirements. A 15-foot landscape buffer is provided adjacent to Parkview Drive as well as on the opposite side of the lot along Medlin Middle School driveway. The landscape plan for Phase 1 meets the town's landscape regulations. There are no trees on the site. No trees on the site. So no tree mitigation is required. 64 parking spaces are required and have been provided. The photometrics plan provides foot candle limitations at adjacent property lines of less than 0.1 foot candle, which complies with the town's regulations. The site plan was reviewed for conformance to the PD 27 Village Center development standards as well as the town's development standards, and the site plan package does conform to those standards and staff recommends approval. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered this request on November 21st and by a unanimous vote of 6 commissioners recommended approval of the site plan. There was a stipulation that a drainage inlet be noted on the plat, and the drainage inlet is in the right-of-way public utilities easement, which is abandoned Parkview Drive. So that stipulation was taken care of. So we had abandoned this portion of Parkview Drive, and it became a 60-foot utility easement, and that's where that inlet was that Commissioner Sheridan was asking be called out. So it's in a public easement, so that is met. Thank you.
Carolyn, did you say that we had a presentation on this?
Mr. McGuire, our applicant, does have a presentation, yes, if we could switch over to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Ryan McGuire, 6324 Darwood Avenue, Fort Worth, Texas. And a lot of my presentation's already been given to you, so I'll just kind of go through a few other things that I wanted to mention about the project. Whoops. Our company is a full-service commercial real estate company. We will develop, own, and manage the property, and are looking forward to getting this project going. The property is currently 30% leased to an orthodontist. We're in final negotiations with the general dentist that will take it to about 55% leased. And so 1 or 2 more tenants will still be available within our first phase, and then we'll start working on our next phase of the building. Plan to start construction early next year. I think everybody has a pretty good idea of where we're located. Of course, doctors in particular really like being around schools, especially orthodontists, pediatric doctors, pediatric dentists. Certainly those types of tenants we're talking with and think there's a good probability they'll be here as well in the future. You've already seen this drawing kind of showing both phases. Phase 1 is really kind of the southern half of the property with 2 entrances. And we designed these buildings in mind for professional office, giving access to the back of all the spaces for doctors. They typically like to be able to come in the back door and then do some nice landscaping and entrances up front. My engineer and architect are here as well if there were detailed questions for them, but that really highlights our project, and I'm open to any questions as well.
Ryan, would you point out the dumpster?
Oh, sure.
I got it.
The dumpster location is right here on the southern end of the site.
Yep. The way it was
Screen.
I wanted to check I noticed, first of all, there's sidewalks all the way down on Parkview.
There is. It's an expensive sidewalk. But yes, there is.
Okay.
Right here. And then this is a screened dumpster location. The doors actually kind of open inward so as not to swing out and block the drive aisle.
And I noticed you had a lot of like bush type plants which is great, except I just want to be sure of one thing, the visibility. You know, the being that is a school area and high traffic, have we looked at the visibility around it? We're navigating around it.
Well, these are actually trees, and so once they're more mature, they'll be fairly high in the air, and
So they won't
at
be
the
an
ground
issue.
level, I think you'll have good visibility.
I wasn't sure if you had the bushes out there. or
There's
not.
a band of knockout roses that run between the trees in that parking lot, if my memory serves me correct. And those guys, unless trimmed, will get to 6 foot tall, so.
Carolyn, are we prepared for a lot of traffic from the school? I have a feeling that there's going to be parents parking there, blocking all those. I mean, are you? I just have this nightmare that this is
You're good.
because we already have that problem on Parkview.
But that was somewhat discussed in there as well, because most of that heavy traffic takes place early in the morning, in the afternoon, and this is a medical building, so the traffic might not be as complex.
Yeah, I think part of the question you might be asking, Philip, is are you aware, probably more than anything, that the likelihood of having people parking in the back of that parking lot in the mornings, right? That's,
Yeah, because I think he's going to be coming back to us and saying we have a problem here.
yeah.
Well, we're aware. We're also aware on weekends that park's going to really fill up sometimes, and parking will spill into our project there, and we're gonna deal with it. But it's also something our tenants love.
Right.
Parents are camped out, seeing exactly where they are, and everybody's having to drive by their location, and it's there's a benefit to it as well.
Okay.
Are you going to provide some measure of reserved parking spaces for the employees, or, I mean, I could see them not loving it
Yeah.
in a real hurry.
Some of our tenants may even have the option, where we, specifically reserve their parking in the rear of the building, which will put a sign in front of each parking space for that tenant, showing that it's theirs. And
Ryan, the way the traffic flows to the school that you're co-located with, and even the elementary further south, it's a very, very difficult situation. We annually look at that to see if there's any way to improve it. It is I'm just putting you on notice. This is a high traffic area, and the schools let out at different times, so that the traffic impact along Parkview is significant for an extended period of time, because Medlin lets out at a different time that Beck Elementary does, and it's just it's a pretty steady stream of traffic in the afternoons especially. And I'm sure we've had those discussions, and you're prepared for that.
We're comfortable.
Okay.
I will add that we've had quite a few discussions about traffic throughout the
Yes.
entire phases of this project, from the time they submitted it until tonight. And especially at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, there was quite a bit of discussion about traffic impact. And Ryan does know that it's probably going to be an ongoing discussion. We're going to have to see, once this site is developed, what other traffic issues we deal with. Certainly the town manager and the Parks Department, myself, and now this applicant are all aware of the issues facing that site, and we're going to continue those discussions and see what works best for them and the town.
I wanted to say I appreciate all the trees that you've put in. They look like they're quality trees. And in a few years, you're going to have to take half of them out because the canopies are going to be through each other. But I appreciate.
I'm aware they're too close. It's just,
I mean,
it's meeting the requirement.
it's not something that we play with at this level.
It's
Yeah,
what
with
requirement?
With the trees are actually too close together.
Yeah, but what did you just say?
Just to meet the amount of trees we needed to put on site to meet the landscape requirement.
Oh, on site in total, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a requirement of 1 per 30 linear feet, and so as this is developed, as it's built, the building official, as he is doing inspections on the site, we're we're going to be aware of this, and if there's a way to move some of those trees, we can't take away. He's got to meet the landscape requirements. But if there is a way to move some of the trees away from the street to where they have a better ability to mature and stay alive, then we're going to look at that.
Maybe we could move them across the street into Indy.
I will tell you that this is something that we're discussing with the church, the Baptist Church, Church at Trophy Lakes, because their trees along Trophy Club Drive, the church right there at the roundabout, we have the same problem. They're at the point where they're looking at having to put in those trees along there, and it doesn't make sense because some of them probably will die. And so we're allowing them to move them to other areas of their site. Not reducing the landscaping, but possibly moving those to other areas of the site. They have a lot of space. Here we don't have that luxury.
My point here, I mean, it's, here again, it can't really play in this equation, but my point here is we're planting trees, or you're planting trees, that I know in 15 years you're going to cut down, have to come back and cut down every other one of them.
Yeah, these are large trees.
Yeah, because
Well, why do you use such large trees?
well, no, that they're fine.
Oh.
They're excellent trees.
Okay.
I mean, this is an excellent quality tree for that application. I mean, that's a fantastic tree. It just happens to have, some have, I put it in my notes, some of them have 40-foot diameters when they're grown. But the beauty part of it is some of them last 200 years, so, yeah. It's just a knowledge factor.
I have a question. This is always my question. When do you plan to start, and when do you plan to finish?
Sure.
That's always my question.
We anticipate starting in January and anticipate construction taking about 6 months.
Not in time for July the 4th.
Our next phase, as soon as this phase is leased, we will immediately and would like to start on the next phase. But I would think, that could take around another year.
Okay, thanks.
What's the size of the second phase? I forgot.
It's about the same size. Yeah.
Also medical.
Professional office medical. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, you're gonna pay more for water, the fire department may not come, and the school's gonna take all your parking places, but you're still gonna build it. Is that right?
Too many trees.
Not making it sound so good.
Have more trees than you need.
It's a forestry operation.
I was just wondering, are you building the parking area just around, so all the cement work and such will be from that entrance south? You're not building any of the cement work north?
Correct.
And even the sidewalk? But there's already a sidewalk there. You're not getting rid of it or anything, right?
Yeah, there is already, I believe there already is a sidewalk here and along Bobcat. I believe that's right. But that, any sidewalk or any parking or infrastructure that is in the Phase 2 portion of the project, we'll do in Phase 2.
Okay, but you will leave the sidewalks that are there. You're
Sure.
not taking
Oh,
those
yeah.
out or anything?
Yep.
Okay. Good.
Fantastic. I think, do we need a motion?
I need a motion.
Do we have to make any accommodation for it while they're building that? And because that is a route to school right now. But I guess
We can flip it to the other side of Parkview and have them cross at the other crossing guard.
okay.
We'll have to make those accommodations, Chief.
Okay. Got it. We were talking about making accommodation for when they are doing the construction for the walkways to school.
I'll visit with the chief on that.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
Mayor, I move to approve site plan for Lot 1, Block B, Trophy Club Village Center.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? All in favor? We're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Turn dirt.
Okay, item number 10, consider and take appropriate action regarding a resolution amending resolution number 2013-22 and 2013-30, appointing town resident to serve on various boards commissions, and corporations in order to appoint residents to fill a vacancy on the Citizens Financial Advisory Board and providing an effective date. Stephen?
Mayor and council, we had two very qualified applicants for our CFAB board. They met on November 25th and recommended to appoint Alex Palazzolo. And I believe he's here if you'd like to ask him any questions. He's in the back there. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about that meeting on November 25th.
Okay. I was asked to read this by Mike Buck, who is he's the chairman, right? CFAB. He's asked we read this into record since he's unable to attend. As a CFAB committee, we endorse the approval of Alex Palazzolo. Okay, they have one extra for our vacant seat. We also request that as a committee, we be tasked with more challenging and meaningful work to support the citizens of Trophy Club. Recently, we reviewed the town's debt policy and purchasing policy and would like the opportunity to review pending contracts and future budgets. Thank you for sharing this comment. That basically is not an agenda item at this point. It's a recommendation, probably something we want to discuss in our retreat. But you have his endorsement of the candidate. Does anyone want to make a motion or have any questions of Alex? I'm not going to.
Go, Bill.
I move to approve resolution 2013-34.
I second.
That's my kind of motion.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Don't we have to,
Well, I'd
we
like
have two applicants, don't we have to name an applicant?
No, it's already
they
filled in.
recommend.
No, I think the resolution has
Okay.
Alex's name
Okay.
in
It
it.
has the recommendation within it.
Correct?
I'd like to ask him a question, if
Mhm.
he'd come forward.
Yes, please.
Let him get off scot-free.
I want him to tell you his story. Will you tell us your story about growing up in Trophy Club?
Yeah. Well, I moved here in 99, 2000, went to Medlin Middle School. I was about 13 at that time, and moved in my sophomore year in high school next door to my future wife. And we started dating my senior year and moved away, went to Waco, attended Baylor for college. She went to OU. And we moved back, and I went to grad school at UNT. And we were dating the entire time, long distance relationship, which was kind of nerve wracking coming back because you spent most of our relationship long distance, so we didn't know if we'd drive each other crazy when I came back. And ended up getting married, moving to Grapevine for 2 years, and then moved back to Trophy Club. Now we live in Abbey Moore in the Highlands. And so I saw the opportunity come up on the website and got an email about it and submitted an application. So
I'd be interested in knowing, indicated that you have a master's in public finance.
right.
So have you actually worked in a public financial environment?
Yes. I did my degree at UNT and had an internship with the city of Southlake in their public works department. And then went to Moody's and spent 2.5 years there doing local government debt ratings. And we looked at everything from MUDs to cities to counties, school districts. And now I'm with Wells Fargo doing corporate banking, but still have a passion for public finance and like to keep up with that.
So when you were at Moody's, did you check on Trophy Club's debt rating?
I did. Yeah, I actually was on the surveillance team, so we did portfolio management and looked at the MUD, the town, and so yeah, had the opportunity to do that. Yeah.
And I will say also that I think that any vacancy that we should have, Sarah Card should be considered highly. She was a good applicant as well.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thanks.
What year can I ask you what year you graduated from? Northwest? Did you graduate?
Northwest, yeah, I graduated in 05.
Cool.
Yep.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
My
Those
kids
like
went to
You must be
Northwest.
proud
I
of
was just
Baylor.
wondering.
Gotcha. Yeah, Baylor, I know. Surprise season, right?
That's great.
Yep. Thanks.
Look forward to working with you. Alex.
Thank you very much.
That is a good story.
Yes. Okay, not just old retired people, you see.
That's right.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Okay, it's approved. Thank you very much. All right. Number 11, consider and take appropriate action regarding a comprehensive debt management policy. Stephen?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a brand-new policy for us. This is a debt management policy. CFAB reviewed this one also, and they voted to approve this or recommend it 4-0. We kind of had a little bit of information from this in our budget document. I got some things from Southlake. I got some things from El Paso. I even went as far as Ann Arbor, Michigan. So this is kind of a conglomeration of a bunch of different policies that I saw on GFOA's website, and we kind of made it our own, made some of the different ratios to fit our town and our needs. I think it's a good policy. It's very short, which most debt management policies are. The purpose is so that we can set parameters on our debt management, and we can't exceed those or put the town in some type of financial bind. It also looks good to bond rating agencies. As far as any of the individual items in the policy, I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding those.
When we met with the bond rating company the last time we were here, our bond people, we were as high as we could go without having this added in, if I remember that discussion correctly.
Yeah,
We're probably as high as we go with it.
Yeah, he
But
indicated
there's
much
no
larger.
chance of going any higher without it.
That's right.
Yeah, they identified this as an opportunity for our town to, when they look at kind of financial integrity and the way that we do, the way we manage our money. This is a key piece when they're rating us. You know, probably the biggest thing for us that will hinder us in the future is our tax base. While we are over $1 billion, which for a town our size is really phenomenal, especially since we're primarily residentially zoned, they want to see $1.5 billion, $2 billion before they start thinking about upgrading you to a AAA. We may be able to squeak up to a AA plus. I think that's probably something we can work towards and probably achieve in the future. A AAA would be very difficult.
Well, I do remember him saying Austin and Dallas maybe the big cities had them.
Yeah, AA plus is attainable for us, but it's going to take some work and probably a couple of years.
I had a question. Is this particular document part of the administrative code? Does it get into, I mean, where does this, I'm trying to figure out whether this should, whether you just pass it this way, whether it should be a resolution, whether it should be an ordinance. Does it go into the where does it wind up?
It's an adopted town policy. It's not adopted by ordinance because it is a policy. So we did not adopt this by resolution. We're not required to. There's no statute that requires us to do that. It's just a policy that the town's council, if you vote positively for, will adopt, and we will have that for future financial review.
Okay. Then I have one other item.
For what it's worth, I owe the town attorney lunch over that question.
Do you? You were going to make it a resolution or not?
No, she thought we probably shouldn't. I said, it's a policy, just put it on the con.
Well, it falls back to one that we had on
Fund balance. We have a fund balance policy that we adopted.
we did it's on a resolution. It's like, can you find that this week? No. So I just it's a cataloging system. On the very last point, on this particular document on page 59. Let me open this rest of this up. Come on. There we go. The very last two sentences or three sentences. I have some concern about the fact that they're in here and may possibly conflict, or in the future could conflict with the ethics and conduct, ethics, town's code of ethics and conduct ordinance, because they deal with the exact same thing. the first sentence I'm looking at, the second one says, town officials shall conduct themselves in a fashion consistent with the best interests of the town and taxpayers. That's subjective and always open to interpretation. The next one is elected and appointed town officials shall avoid even the appearance of linkages between politics and public finance that can erode the confidence of citizens. Well, I hate to say it, but we're in politics and we're talking public finance. The last one is this includes avoiding gratuities and political contributions of more than nominal value from service providers, and the disclosure of all possible conflicts of interest shall be provided in writing and filed with the town secretary and the finance department. Well, if you have those conflicts, I believe they're also already considered under state statutes under conflict of interest, and there are certain actions that are required there. So long story short is I would like to delete those last three sentences and replace them with this sentence that says town officials shall comply with the town's code of ethics and conduct ordinance and state statutes.
My question would be if you eliminate that, because you're trying to give clarity to the bonding company that's reviewing that as well, and they're not going to want to go back and review our town ethics policy and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Am I correct?
If it specifically refers to another policy, I mean, we may have to present that policy additionally with this one. You're correct in that, yes.
I mean,
Yeah, they
Patricia,
would,
am I
they
not
may
correct?
ask for that.
Am I not correct if we leave this in, but there's a state statute or that would override that, the statute is going to take precedent over this verbiage?
The state law requirements are still there. To the extent it's not inconsistent with state law, then it's just another requirement.
I don't see any reason to change it.
Can you repeat that again?
What I would do, okay, I'll make a motion, we'll get a second to talk about it. Okay, I move to replace the last bullet point.
Whole thing? The whole thing?
No, looking at the last bullet point. I move to delete the last three sentences and replace them with, town officials shall comply with the town's code of conduct, I'll start over. Town officials shall comply with the town's code of ethics and conduct ordinance and state statutes.
All right, so here's my issue.
Need a
Wait.
second to have a discussion.
Oh. All right, I'll second it. Right now, our ethics said, that's the debate we've been having, or I had, about shall and should. So our ethics now says we should behave, doesn't say we shall behave. So you're kind of watering this down by putting that in there.
I personally, I understand your desire not to repeat, but I know if it's possible for me to have something I'm reviewing all in one place, and it's not overly specific as to being, where you have to be concerned about, I think it's better to have it where the person reading it, they can complete what they're looking at by looking at one document. That's my feeling.
I don't mean to get off topic, but Philip, help me here. At TML, did they not say if you ask for discussion and someone speaks, that's basically a second? Do you recall that?
Don't put me on the spot.
All right, we'll check that.
You were there.
He was eating donuts. No, I'm only kidding.
Well, I think that was just on the call to, I don't know. I'll defer to the town manager who's been to TML many times.
It doesn't matter right now. I
No,
mean,
I
but
was just, something's in my head, I gotta get it out.
is there any other discussion on the amendment? What? Any well, not the amendment.
Yeah, the amendment, I'm sorry.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment that Councilman Rose proposed? All those opposed? Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Mayor, I
Sorry.
I move that we approve the comprehensive debt management policy.
I second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
I'm gonna vote for it.
All those in favor? Okay.
Even with that in there.
Mayor, if I might, I do have one exception. We just sent these guys to the newly elected training, training at the Texas Municipal League, and I do object to their last training issue of when in doubt, always throw the town manager under the bus. You guys can forget that part. That you know.
Now, I thought that's what we've been telling him, is go to the town manager. Okay, number 13, consider and take appropriate action. No, wait. I'm sorry, that was 11. Number 12 is consider and take appropriate action regarding revisions to the town procurement policies and procedures.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an existing policy. When I reviewed this policy, I found our purchasing policy was already extremely strong. One area that I was asked to look at was the state recently, in 2012, I believe, increased the limit from 25,000 to 50,000 that we would have to go out for a competitive bid. As we all know, competitive bidding, the process itself costs money and it takes time. The main change in this policy is going from 25,000 to 50,000. Doing that would save the town money in advertising when we would be in the threshold between 25 and 50,000. It would also save time instead of waiting weeks to wait for bids to come in for a product in between that threshold. We could go out and purchase it immediately. There's additionally just a couple of other changes in this policy that deal with getting bonds specifically for construction projects, and also I found that the newly adopted state purchasing guidelines had a preference for purchasing products that are made of recycled materials. So there's that included in there also.
One thing I questioned when you're reviewing it, and I asked Mike when he sent me the note today, and they only looked at your changes. But one of my concerns is I think it's the last item, and I think the meals are not valid in today's economy.
I was gonna start at the top and work down.
Well, that was the only one I had, oh God, yes. The only one I had an issue with. It was on page 68. And I personally am okay with approving the policy, but I want you to go back and look at this.
Okay.
Is the way I feel. Because I don't feel that those numbers are consistent with what you can do today.
Okay, which number was that inside of the policy?
5.03, travel expenses, and it's meals. It's the very last paragraph on the page.
What page?
Page 68.
Come on, girl.
Maybe you can answer that to me.
I can tell you that I'm setting up a board meeting next January, and that the meal's gonna have a working luncheon, and the meals for the lunch meal averages between $18 and I think $28, averaging about $23, $25 per meal for luncheon, plus 22% gratuity plus state tax.
Yeah, and see the maximum
just
15%.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's,
What were you going to say?
Now, I didn't change anything with that because the state purchasing law doesn't specifically address that. What CFAB asked me to do was make our policy in accordance with the state law. So
Okay.
because the state law doesn't specifically address that, I didn't change that.
Okay.
Oh.
I think we probably should look at that.
I do think there is,
Should be a federal
there
policy
is a
on that.
cause for us to go in and look at our travel reimbursement policy anyway.
Okay.
I know Northwest ISD has completely gotten away with from expense receipts and provided a per diem as an example. Depending on where you're going, you get X amount per day, and if you want to eat at, you know, Dairy Queen all 3 meals, that's your business.
I've been trying to convince FEMA to do that.
Yeah, I know there are several public agencies that they're all a little bit different, but ours is pretty cumbersome, and we can do better.
Mayor, just so I'm clear, the only changes that you've made to this at CFAB's request were to bring us into compliance with the state. Other than that, our policy is unchanged, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I just
this
think
is
it's
what
adequate.
happens when you get something out and read it.
Okay, I would like to make a recommendation here. See if you, if you're gonna, do you have issues with the changes they made?
No, but I have some issues with the rest of this, including some of these spots.
Okay, so perhaps if the only thing that they addressed was making it consistent with the state, what if we go ahead with that and ask them now to look at the other questions, separate from this meeting in
Well,
between?
Well, I don't see a reason, I don't see a reason to take it piecemeal. I mean, unless there's a $25,000 deal. I mean, this item I put on the agenda was the top item on the agenda that I put back
Okay,
on in
go ahead.
2010. If you look at 3.1, I'm on page 64, and I'm looking at the very bottom of that when you get to 3.1. If somebody can explain this to me, I'd love it. It says, if a former staff member or town officer has worked less than 1 year for a business seeking to contract with the town, the business entity must make this known and must describe the relationship between the former employee officer and the firm. Fine. In no instance may this former employee officer have hours billed on any project or program. What? They've been working there for a year and they can't work and have any billable hours at the company that they're working at? I have questions about that. To do so is reason for not awarding the contract. When I read
There's
something
something
like
missing
that,
in that.
there's a problem in that one. Let's see if the next one.
How many more you got?
Not many.
All right.
No, I'll talk about that one later. It refers within it talking about a policies and procedures manual. Manual's not in the title.
Page
Okay.
are you on now?
It's throughout. 68, the one the mayor brought out, page 68, the meals, there's a real issue there. On page 69, it's a very long, 5.4, it's a very long statement, but out in the middle of it, just go down now, it says, forward to the procurement card administrator within the specified time limit of no more than 3 days. We went through a snowstorm here, ice storm. You didn't do anything for 5 days, so I think that needs to be something like working days. Just a thought, cleaning it up. Down on page, and this may be something that's just changed in their state law also, down on page 70, 5.06. Says competitive sealed bids are to be advertised in local newspapers of general circulation under the legal notices section. Was there a change of state law that allowed that to be done through electronic media, or did that not pass?
Didn't pass.
Didn't pass? Okay, thanks. On page 71, I have a question. Above 5.8, it says frequency, and it says the RFP process for professional services may be utilized biannually. Does that mean you are only allowed to go out for an RFP or RFQ twice a year?
Or every other year.
Or, yeah, or every other year. It's like, what if you wanted to do it 3 different weeks on 3 different items?
Now, I'm not sure.
Are
if
they,
that's
are they
referring-
saying that it's more of a, that you couldn't go out for a bid every year on a particular contract? They can do it every other year? Is that what
I
that
believe
means?
that's what it's referring to.
Well,
Although it's not clear, you're
yeah,
correct.
it's like, what does it say? 510, state contract purchasing. Has the option of purchasing items on contract through the Houston Galveston Area Council Cooperative Purchasing Program. Are there others that should be listed, or are those the ones that we do, only one we do? Just a
Well,
question.
We have the state of Texas on there
Okay.
also.
But we do
Yeah, so
a number
let's-
of different.
We need to be more general or clean it up. And
Bill, I think all of these, if you will allow me just for a second, I think all of these are legitimate, but I don't think we want to rewrite this entire policy tonight. I think we just want to address the things to bring us into compliance with the state. And then I think I'm going to agree with the mayor, we need to go back to CFAB and we can all mark up the things that we think need to be addressed and do it at that time. But I don't think we need to try to rewrite this entire
Okay.
thing tonight.
Well, I thought we were gonna send it back to them and let them bring.
Well, we need to, I think we need to get in compliance with the recommended changes.
Well-
They sent it to us to change, and then we can send it back for editing. So I would move that we approve the town procurement policies and procedures.
Give a second.
I'll second that.
I do have one other question. On 5.11, alternative project delivery methods, that's a state law issue. My understanding is the state law just changed such that cities less than 100,000 are not permitted to use the design-build process. Now, do you think that the way that's written covers that? Because you say as specified in subchapter H. I don't know if it's in that thing.
When you say the state law just changed, do you mean very recently, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I
They
was
have not put out a new,
I was moderating a session at TML on purchasing, and that's where they talked about the fact that the law had changed and that we could not
Put your
use.
manager at risk.
Yeah.
I only have two other
If you
items
can
real
check on that.
quickly. I know Danny's guy's motion.
When we, Mayor,
One,
when we have
if it
as
says
amended
city,
on there, that
city secretary
encompasses
should be
future.
That's what I was
secretaries.
asking.
Yes.
Okay.
And the other item is 1401 ends with an incomplete sentence. Says a copy of the item sold, and it doesn't say anything about it. 14, it's on page 79. That's an incomplete sentence. So, that's all I've got.
Okay. Well, basically, though, thank you. Basically, if we approve this, what we really would like is for them to look at the total policy.
okay?
Is that, everyone in agreement with that? Okay.
And I think we've got all the comments from everybody, and
Yeah.
Okay.
let us take this back, let's table this until January 6th, and we'll get you a clean copy.
Okay, we don't need to go ahead with the state ones.
I mean, the only real change would be 25 to 50, and I don't anticipate accessing that between now and January 6th.
Okay.
We'll have to withdraw the motion.
Most of them will be on vacation.
You want to table it to a date specific? January 6th? You want to do it that way?
Well, if you table it, we gotta bring it back to the next regular council meeting anyway.
Well, if we're going to table it, we have to withdraw the motion.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Yeah.
And you'll withdraw the second?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Will you shoot me an email?
Yeah.
with those?
Do we have to vote to table it,
I mean, I can go back and look.
or
at the
just
video.
let it go?
It's easier.
Yes, you have to vote to table.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send-
I move we table, Mayor.
we just-
Right.
I thought we weren't going to take, we're just going to take any action. They're going to take it back and do it.
Patricia just told me we had
Yeah,
to.
if you're tabling it, you have to vote. You want to refer it to a future meeting, then just, I mean, if you just want us to bring it back, we can just bring it back. You don't
Okay.
have to table it
Let's do that.
or refer it, either one.
I withdraw.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I agree.
All right. Item number 13. Consider and take appropriate action regarding a fourth modification of the agreement between the town and Allied Waste for solid waste collection and recycling, transportation, and disposal services, and authorizing the mayor or her designee to execute all necessary documents. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. You guys, council has all been pretty much read in on what it is we're trying to effect here. Our existing contract with Allied Waste is due to expire in April of 2015. However, the economic conditions and the fact that we have grown so fast, and so quickly, has allowed us to approach Allied Waste about an extension of their existing contract, with very minimal financial impact on our citizens. And what you're asked to consider tonight is an extension or a modification of the existing contract that would provide for a stable rate over the next 7 years. It would be effective February of 2014. And the financial impact on our residential customer is 32 cents a month. And that is set for the next 7 years, with the possibility of Allied Waste coming forward on an annual basis for a DFW CPI adjustment or something equivalent to that, subject to the council's approval in the next 7 years. It doesn't, this modification does not include any kind of representation toward moving toward recycled carts or any kind of polycart. However, it does provide for, the contract doesn't provide for, but Allied Waste has, in our last meeting, indicated that if at some point the council determines that they'd like to run a pilot program for recycled carts, they will do so at their cost, if that's at the pleasure of the council. Probably the most important concern for the town is that they've, in this modification, also agreed to take on the responsibility of our semi-annual, twice a year, household hazardous waste efforts. And that is a very popular program in our community. It runs the town approximately $16,000 to $18,000 a year on top of the existing $500 stipend that Allied Waste currently gives us in our existing contract. That stipend goes away, but they do take on the total cost of both of those events for us on an annual basis, coordinating that with the town. So there's some immediate savings to the town. Our community has been very satisfied with the level of service. Obviously, we know what that level of service is. We've talked about what their service level and history has been with our community, and it would be staff's recommendation that we approve the fourth modification to this contract that would become effective February 1st of 2014, the pricing, and would expire April 30th of 2020. Jerry Harwell is here to represent Allied Waste, if you have any questions of her.
So let me ask you this. You're saying that the twice yearly event costs $22,000 to $24,000? Is that what?
No. Oh, I thought it did. No. So the 18 is gross.
It costs
so we
about
get $16,000
to $18,000 a year for those two events and being able to utilize the collection center.
So, and $6,000 is provided in the stipend.
That's correct.
So it's a $12,000 savings.
That's right.
Thanks for the correction.
But the other side of that is that we want to expand those events to include more offerings to your residents.
Like?
Shredding, maybe a little bit longer period of time where you have the event now for 2 hours. Maybe we go to 3 hours, see if that works better. It will work better in that it will cost me more money, but I mean, that's, one of the things that I'd like to look at doing. But there are always other ways to bring in new recycling as technology and things advance. And it would certainly be something that we would offer here.
And I know that the stipend was mainly for educational purposes. I don't think it was used as much for that, but would you provide more education for the residents on recycling, on different things of that nature?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I've been involved with the Carton Council most of my day-to-day, which has been very interesting. As we have opened the new material recovery facility, and through a partnership with the Carton Council, we can now take the waxed cartons that you're not supposed to be able to recycle, which expands your list. So that's going to require education to your residents. And so I'll be working on that, but we'll also be able to put that on your website so that your residents will be able to go and look at all of that. So, you know, it's one of those things that just kind of fell in my lap today, and somebody said, I need a list of all your customers that recycle. And I bring up the list, and I'm like, okay, well, that's out of date. Well, that one's up to date. That one's. So, absolutely, that is a piece of it. We are also redoing our website that will be linked to your website at the town, which will have all kinds of recycling information, weather day, you know, all that type of stuff. But we're always willing to include something in a water bill or put something on a, you know, billboard or whatever it takes. I'm going to start working with Northwest ISD to get back into the schools again and start doing our recycle programs at the schools where we go in and talk to the kids, because recycling really starts with the kids. So, I mean, we're not taking any of the education away. Stephen would like for me to take over this HHW, and he's been trying to convince me of this for a couple of years. Because that's what the stipend was being used for, we're still going to, you know, take care of the education piece. None of that goes away.
Since we're,
Go ahead.
Since we're talking about recycling, I mean, I think our recycling, honestly, I would dare say a very few, small percentage of our people in Trophy Club, as well as others, really know how to recycle and what to recycle. For instance, you indicate that you give each resident 2 bins. Well, there are more than 2 bins out there on occasion in different houses. Not only that, the trash is not put in the bins, it's just lined up all around the bins. And I am very concerned as we go forward, particularly if we want people to recycle more. You know what? I just think that we need polycards to recycle. And the reason I say that is I actually found an article on the internet regarding the polycards increase the recycling tonnage.
Okay, in all fairness to Councilman Mayer.
And you have all these other towns that have polycards.
I absolutely promised that I would not bring a card in here tonight, and I'm not going to. But here's what I would like to do. And I think even Councilman Mayer will agree with me on this. I will do a pilot program. We can do it the first quarter of 2014. We can do it in the summer. I don't care when we do it. I will do that pilot program and bring the results into the council chambers and say, this is what they said. And the way that we did that in Grapevine is we mailed out, we did it on certain routes, and I know Councilman Mayer doesn't want to talk about carts tonight, but I have to answer the question, so give me that, please. But we sent out the information to the residents. We picked 2 separate routes. Staff can pick it, council can pick it. We can draw numbers. It doesn't make me any difference. Then we did the pilot program for 90 days. We sent out a comment card. We entered every comment card in a spreadsheet. I did a pivot table on it, and this is what the data showed. We gave a list of all the comments, because we give them a comment section. We gave a list of all the comments to the council, and I backed away and said, make your decision. I'm going through the exact same thing right over in Grapevine right now on a brush and bulk pilot program where I've recommended they get bulk every week. You take it away, you're going to make them angry. That's what the results say. I've already said that it will increase your recycling by going to carts. But the bottom line is, until we actually do a pilot program here, we're not going to know that. You may be 100% right. The residents may not want it. You may be right. The residents may want it.
Well, I kind of go back to Philip's comment, education, because to me this is all a part of educating our residents on recycling and trash collection and so forth. And I just know that when we drive up and down the streets on trash day on Fridays, the recycling bins are in all kinds of stuff. And also, are you supposed to recycle like white plastic bags?
You can now. That's what I'm saying.
That's what they're calling it. They're calling it a one-stream.
Single stream.
Single
That is. And I will make a commitment to you that we will do an education piece. I'll make sure that Mike puts it in front of every council member to make sure but we did it. We have done it. We've done 2 mail-outs.
Okay.
To the residents.
Education is a big piece of the pie.
Council, I want to assure you that this modification does not include anything
No, it doesn't.
related to polycarts.
I'm sorry.
However,
But it's education.
at the council's pleasure, if there is an opportunity that you feel like you want to do a pilot program, Allied is prepared to do that. I would also probably put her on the spot, but I don't think this is too big of a spot to put you on. They recently opened a state-of-the-art recycling center. Would you consider giving them a tour of that recycling center to see how
Absolutely.
that works? It is a phenomenal center. And,
Absolutely.
you no longer have to recycle bottles, cans, and paper goods. You just put it in and it does it.
Your
And it's a
film
really-
of it is a.
But I mean, we have, there's always new technology coming. And so, I mean, absolutely. And I'm keeping my word. I'm not here to push carts. I'm not.
I'm not sorry I did it because I think it's still something that needs to have.
Do you keep track of how much participation? I mean, I know it's in the contract, and we saw the tonnage report, but do you keep, like, how many percentage of Trophy Club is actually recycling?
The residential.
Yes and no. Yes, being we do an audit a couple of times a year, and that kind of gauges, where we are in participation, where we actually go by and use clickers and do it. That technology has not changed. We are now in the process of upgrading all of our drivers' phones for GPS. If you call me and say to me that we didn't pick up your trash, but we got everybody else on the street, I can now go to that driver's route and look to see exactly what addresses he stopped at, and that will incorporate into our being able to know exactly who participated. The only true way to do that is an RFID chip, and there is no way to do that on a bin.
And then one other question: if I know sometimes that my trash is missed. No, let me rephrase that. I know sometimes the recycle truck picks up my trash. Does that happen sometimes?
It has happened on occasion, and I will tell you that there's two things that can happen. One, the trash truck and the recycle truck look identical. The only difference is the number on the truck and where they empty. Okay, so, and I know this because I used to get these calls a lot in Trophy Club. The other thing that can happen is if it rained and all of that's wet, my trash driver knows that they can't be recycled and it goes into the trash. The other thing that happens, if the top of the recycle has got a lot of trash in it and it's not correct recycling, the trash driver will take it because it will contaminate the entire recycling load if we put a bunch of wet, stuff in there. So, am I going to say that they don't ever make a mistake? Nope, not going to say it. It does happen. We are not perfect, and I think I told y'all that the last time I was here. We are not ever going to be perfect. I have to rely on sometimes new drivers and things like that. But it is never our intent to put trash and recycling in the same truck, and it is against company policy. If I catch a driver doing it, he's terminated.
Well, I didn't say that then.
But when I get those complaints, I do go and investigate it. I have been known to meet them at the landfill and go through their load.
We did have a speaker signed up for this. If I can stop now. And Doug Sims had signed up to speak.
Mayor, Council, I appreciate you allowing me to speak tonight. I'm Doug Sims with Waste Management. I'm Public Sector Services Manager. And I'm here to encourage you to go ahead and go out for proposals for your recycling and your solid waste contract. I must admit that I was visiting with my esteemed colleague and competitor before the meeting, and her proposal that she gave you last month probably sounded a whole lot what I would have said if I were speaking to one of my councils. And as the incumbent, I certainly think that they should be giving an advantage, especially if they're doing a good job. If they're not, I don't think this conversation would be held. Waste Management is the largest recycler and solid waste company in North America. And we have some special services. You're talking about your household hazardous waste. I presented some of you with a At Your Door program, which actually, rather than a twice-a-year program in which people have to bring their household goods, electronics, things like that to a site, we actually would pick those up at the house, at the garage. And it's called our At Your Door service. And we'd like to present that as part of our proposal. Obviously, I think that you do have to look at your rates, and I think it's been 10 years since, or at least by the end of this contract period, it will be 10 years since you've looked at proposals. And under Texas law, of course, you do not have to select the lowest bid. I know that was one of her concerns was, well, somebody's going to come in here and underbid me. They're going to know what our rates are. Waste Management looks at our own capital expenditures, our own needs, our pro forma, and we don't base it based on what somebody else is bidding. But I think it's incumbent upon the council to at least take a look at the proposal, see what's out there now after 10 years, and then see what those rates are. And I don't know what that price differential has to be. It may be 25 cents for one city. It may be 50 cents or $1 for another. But I think it would be incumbent if you at least take a look at the proposals, and I would encourage you to do that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah.
We did propose HHW at the curb. And Stephen and Mike and I have talked about this numerous times. Your residents enjoy coming to those events, and that's the reason why we did not look at doing that. There is a cost associated with that, like there is the other events, but we did discuss at the curb. And so, I mean, okay, Waste Management is the largest garbage company in the world, in the United States. Okay, well, Republic is the second largest, and we basically offer all the same services. So
I just wanted to validate one thing. When our event, currently we do shredding, electronics, hazardous waste, and bulk. If you were doing the event, you would do all of those?
yes. Okay. And then look for other things to bring to the events.
Mayor, I'm going to put my cards on the table. I'm not going to be able to support renewing the contract without a bid. And I'm going to base that on a little research I've done. And we've had this conversation before. We went through this contract back January 24th of 2010. And I pulled some of my notes from there. And I see some rates, if I'll bring those up later, that need to be addressed. But anyway, I did a comparison, and when I talk about doing a comparison, I need to be honest. We all need to be honest about this. You can't get an apples-to-apples comparison for waste contract with any city because, if nothing else, the amount of industrial and the amount of residential differs. And we've had this conversation. Last time I went through this, I did a lot of research, and it boiled down to the fact you can't do it. The only way you can come up with an answer on what's competitive is to go out for a bid. I looked at Trophy Club and I looked at Keller. Trophy Club, the proposal is $14.14 per month. That includes recycling. Keller is $11.21 per month. That includes recycling. For our 3,683 homes, that's a difference of $10,791. I'm going to forget the pennies from here on out per month. That boils down to roughly $130,000 per year, and over the 5-year contract, all things remaining stable, that's $647,000 of difference. We're starting to talk about real money. When you get into these contracts, you find things like franchise fees. Now, included in our $14.14 cost per month, we get a 6% franchise fee. Keller, in their $11.21 a month, gets a 9% franchise fee. That 3% difference amounts to $93,000 over 5 years. Recycling. We love to talk about recycling. We pay, as Keller pays, the citizens pay for recycling, or it's included, let's put it that way, in their rate. We recycled 877 tons, or that's the progression that or the estimate that I have based on current recycling for the year. There's only 2 months to go to show in the report. Keller gets 60% of the profit off of it. Now there's a complex formula that they go through to determine how much they get. But right now they get $10 per ton. That $10 per ton amounts to about $8,800 per year, or for over 5 years, a little over $43,000 of income coming back to the city. When I take and add those numbers up, I'm at $785,000 of difference. And I look at that and go, can I say that we can achieve that? No, I can't say that we can achieve that because of the difference in industrial, the difference in residential, and the difference in size of cities. But you cannot know where you stand unless you go out for a bid. Keller handles their community cleanup program by including in the bill, and it's included in that $11.21, a 20-cent per month charge for community cleanup. That amounts to $8,800 a year. Granted, it's not enough to cover what we're talking about, but it's all in that amount. But here again, unless you go out for a bid, you don't know what you've got. And so, I appreciate, and your guys do a great job, and I enjoy your service. But how can I know that I've got a competitive, solid price for my citizens?
Well, I would have to say that you at some point you have to rely on your staff to know what they're doing, and these are all discussions that we've had, and Mike knows that your contract is over 80% residential, which is normally a complete flip from any other city, where the commercial subsidizes the residential. Now this isn't true. This isn't just true to me, but Mike's been a city manager for a number of years, and he knows this. He also can probably look up how many businesses there are in Keller versus how many businesses there are here. Now, I get it when you look at it the way that you're looking at it, but those commodities go up and down and up and down and up and down, and so to just say that they get $10 a ton every month is not accurate information.
No, they're capped at, I think their contract, they get 60%, and their contract's capped at 40.
Okay, they're getting 60% after all expenses are coming out of that.
Exactly.
Okay, and so what about on those months where you're not getting any money for glass and you're having to pay to get rid of it? That's coming off that number.
Certainly, but they have an entire list of all the prices. I mean, it's all in the contract. But my point is simple, and I think and my point is simple. I appreciate the town manager and his work. I do, and the staff and their work. But the point is very simple. You cannot know whether you have an efficient, effective cost spending without going out for a bid. Now, and I understand, you've said, well, everybody's seen my numbers. But on the other hand, and you said that they'll sharpshoot you, but you've also said if we go for bids, it's going back to corporate. And how do we know what corporate's going to say?
Oh, I know exactly what corporate's going to say because I've been doing this job for 7 years, and every time it goes to corporate, the price goes up. So I know that. I mean, there's a given. There's another thing. Keller's rates aren't locked. I've given you the opportunity to lock your rates and not approve a rate adjustment.
They have the same. They have a formula that they use based on CPI minus fuel. They go specific, and then they have a fuel adjustment. So it's yes, but the key to me, the key is to make sure that the RFP is written exactly the way we want it, so that we get competitive bids that we can evaluate.
I understand.
Like I say, I appreciate your service, and the guys do a great job. I'm done.
I have not been easy on you, have I?
No, sir, you have not. But I'm a big girl, and I can handle it.
That's okay.
Are you about to throw arrows at me again?
I am not. I have had two major concerns. One has been polycarts. I don't care about polycarts personally because I'm not going to put them in my garage. So if you go to polycarts, my recycling just becomes trash. So I don't have a problem either way. My problem with polycarts is we've done 2 surveys of the citizens of this town, and overwhelmingly both surveys have said they're not interested in polycarts. That's who I represent. That's why I'm opposed to them. I'm not going to deviate from that. I am concerned that you do have an agenda for polycarts. I do believe that you do.
No, sir, I do not. No, sir, I absolutely do not.
Okay. All right. I'll take you at your word.
I absolutely do
not
have an
agenda. The other thing that I
agenda.
was hard on you about is the last 2 modifications that you've had to your contract, and we discussed this last year when we were talking about this, is the last 2 modifications to the contract were substantial. I mean, they far exceeded any CPI. And I thought, and at that point, I didn't go back beyond the last 2 modifications. But in my mind, if you're looking at cost of services and adjustments to contracts, those 2 were beyond. Y'all had to be happy. Y'all probably did high fives down there, and that's okay. But this one, I have to tell you, the citizens of this town are very happy with your services. And that goes a long way. I'm not interested in, I like flat fees. I'm not interested in going out and sharing, and I don't care how much glass you recycle. I'm not interested in getting any of the money back. You keep it. I just want to pay for my service and be done with it. And I think locking for the citizens of Trophy Club for 7 years, and we don't have to approve your request for a CPI adjustment every year, locking it in for 7 years for 32 cents is a good thing for the citizens of this town. I'll support it. But leave those polycarts over at Jeanette's house.
Okay,
Just take her one, and we won't have to hear about this anymore.
I do not have an agenda for polycarts, and I give you my word of honor on that. Actually, let me be clear on something else. If you approve this, you're not going to see me. No, let me say this different, because somebody's going to come back and get me. I'm not going to be in here in 2014 asking for a CPI. So the soonest that you would see me would be 2015. Doesn't mean that I'm actually have to come in then. I only offered up the pilot program as an option because there are some people on council who wanted that. That's it. So,
Madam Mayor, I believe that a contract of this size and length should be sent out for bid. And it should be given to CFAB to review and make a recommendation. I think we owe it to the residents. It's a 7-year contract.
I have a question. I've established my position, but back in 2010, when we talked about the contract, on Exhibit A, talks about commercial front-end load rates. I think there is an error, and I brought the question up in 2010, why the rate drop, and I was surprised to see that it's still in this one. As you flow from the upper left to the lower right corner, all the numbers increase going down, increase going to right, except...
Bill, what page would that be?
I'm on page...
90
I'm on, let's see, it's on page 88.
or 90.
Well, yeah, probably both of them are the same, 88 or 89. I'm looking at the 8-yard size 4 times a week. The 6-yard size 4 times a week is $453 and the 8-yard size is $386.92. My question in 2010, this is my question now, is why is that rate less?
Okay, well, here's the deal. It was done that way back before 2007, before I even got here. And that rate sheet has been a part of the contract as attachment A moving forward. In order to correct that, we would have had to have gone all the way back and corrected it. So the calculation has just been accumulating like that, and it just works that way. The good news is it's not an issue in Trophy Club because you don't have a lot of commercial, and we would encourage the lower rate based on the services that are provided here, the container size. So it's been a wash, and we really don't have anybody that's got that container going that number of days a week. So it was just an error in the calculation before I got here, and it's just consistently stayed that way.
I just figured if you're going to modify the contract, you would have corrected it at 2010.
Yeah, but then you got to go
it.
back, and
I don't understand the go back, but that's my problem, I guess.
It is, you know, so.
So, I have a question. If we go out to bid, is your contract, as it is right now, still good to us coming down the road?
No, ma'am.
So that I want to confirm that.
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'd just like to express my feeling. I, for one, have always been very, very pleased with the service, and everybody always had very positive comments on the service. And you mentioned something earlier about bulk. You basically pick up bulk.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever.
We pick up everything.
I know.
Right.
Tuesday,
And I mean, that's a really
Friday.
big thing, though.
There's no standard.
You know, I see people that have a significant amount of trash out there that other people would require a special pickup or something, and you pick it up.
And Keller has limits on their bulk.
I think when we can say we owe it to the residents to go to bid, but I can't imagine there would be enough of a difference when we're talking, yes, we're talking 7 years, but we're talking keeping the rate for 7 years. It's not like I'm committing to some huge thing for 7 years, but keeping good service and good rate. I think that we are doing what is best for our residents that way. That's my feeling.
Mayor, I move that we approve the 4th modification of the agreement between the town and Allied Waste for solid waste and collection and recycling, transportation, and disposal services, and authorizing the mayor or her designee to execute all necessary documents.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Passed.
I will have to say, it shocked me that you made the motion, and I certainly do
I knew
appreciate
I would.
it. And I will not let you down. Thank you very much.
Excuse me just a minute, Mayor. Thank you, and go hug her.
Now, if I want to do a pilot,
Volunteer, who wants to volunteer for the pilot?
I'm going to volunteer my.
There was a payoff, I knew it.
Can I say one more thing? I'd like to get my book. Okay, we'll see y'all in 2020. Thank you.
Thank you.
2020. Anyway, I want to find two areas to
Okay, ready to move?
Yes, ma'am.
Item number 14, consider and take appropriate action regarding financial and variance report dated November 2013. Stephen.
Mayor and Council, this is the second financial report for fiscal year 2014. Pretty much like the last report, there isn't a lot of activity so far. Property taxes will begin to flow in December and January. That's when we'll get the majority of the property tax. Sales tax for the month of November was up slightly from the month of November in 2013. Overall, we're still a little bit declined because of the October month, which was down quite a bit from the previous year. On the expenditure side, there aren't any major variances so far. The only major variance would be in facilities management, which pays for the property insurance for the entire year up front. That's about 70% of their budget. Information services, they pay for our accounting software maintenance up front, and that is a large portion of their budget. Everybody else, every other department is within budget so far. Trophy Club Park is a little bit over budget, and that's because of a community event that they've expended about $5,300 so far in community events of their $6,500 budget for that line.
Well, do you know what community event that was? I was wondering about that.
And I wasn't sure.
I think it's the camp out.
I believe so.
Even though we had to cancel? Did we cancel the camp out?
No, we had some inclement weather, but we still had people out there for
Okay.
some of the weekend.
Okay. Thank you.
It wasn't me.
It's pretty bad. It was pretty cold. Okay. Any questions?
I have one question, and this is just for my curiosity. In the check register, why do we pay ASCAP fees?
Well, because if you want to play any licensed, copyrighted, or trademarked music at events, then you have to pay a fee to those particular songwriters. It's the same reason like in a retail store.
No, I knew that. I
Yeah.
didn't know that we played any licensed music or.
Well, if you want to play anything from a CD, you
Yeah.
want to play anything that is not on a distributed playlist, then I guess maybe it's the right thing to do. It's the
No, I
ethical thing
understand.
to do.
I just this is the first time I've seen ASCAP on our check
Yeah,
register.
it's
so
about
it's
$300
curious.
a year, I think.
Right,
and-
right, yeah.
And that covers us to be able to play any type of music out there.
Let's start playing.
Yeah.
We played Christmas music at the employee Christmas
There you
party.
go. Thank you. That's all I had.
All right. Anybody want to make a motion?
Mayor, I move that we accept the financial variance report dated November 2013.
I'll second, and I have a comment.
Okay.
I believe that you were awarded from GFOA the award for CAFR. When are we going to see the presentation at the dais? That's my only discussion item.
We have not received the plaque yet. We received the
Notification?
notification, correct.
Okay,
A copy of the plaque, but not the actual plaque.
okay, thank you,
Before May of 2014, you'll see it.
thank you.
Yeah. A lot of things will happen before May 2014.
Bring a little heater.
Freezing.
Okay.
You
I'm
cold?
bringing
It's freezing. I'm cold.
I'm done.
You done? Okay. Any other discussion?
You're probably
All in favor?
burning up.
Aye.
My nose is running.
Okay. Item number 15, council liaison updates. Parks and Rec, wasn't a meeting.
I can speak to that, Mayor. I mean, they had their last two meetings. They've had difficulty getting a quorum, so they have not convened. We hope that they will convene in early January to start working on that consolidated youth organizational agreement.
And the panels,
I can speak to
had
that as well.
We've already got that.
Yeah.
I mean, we basically got that, right?
You got your update. You bet.
Okay.
That was well done.
Yes, very. Okay, item 16, town manager Sly's update.
I want to take an opportunity, thank you, Mayor and Council, to pat my organization on the back over this last major weather event. I do think that a lot of our residents are very appreciative of the communication efforts made during that event. We were all shut in. We were all going crazy and climbing the walls. But major kudos to April Reiling, who was not here tonight because she's ill, but did a fantastic job. Streets guys out there, public safety, fire, police. We had a couple of slips on the ice. Nothing major in terms of injuries to us or injuries to the town. I think you'll probably see or may have seen a light pole that was dismantled as you come over the hill on Trophy Club Drive. Encore is on top of that, and we moved that out of the sidewalk area today.
Oh, I was going to ask about that.
So we've got, I was very pleased and proud of our efforts, and I know that along with public safety in situations like that, utility maintenance is also a high concern. You still want to keep your wastewater treatment plant and water plant flowing, and the MUD did a great job doing that as well. So kudos to both organizations for a job well done. And for those folks that are new to Trophy Club and perhaps maybe moved in from the north, we don't have the kind of equipment that you used to have when you lived up there. But we do with what we can, and we are very creative about how we use ours. But again, I'm very proud of the effort put in by both organizations.
I just want to make it really clear that, yes, we don't have the equipment. You're absolutely right. Even if we did, on 3 inches of ice isn't going to do a lot of good. I just say that because I came from up north, and I know when I first came down here, it was like, what does everybody get so crazy about? Ice is different. It isn't like snow. And I do think you all did a phenomenal job.
I had a quick question. At one point, there was 30 tons that had gone out, and then we got up to 40 tons of materials that went on the street. Where did
We got a little creative.
we store materials, some materials, but not. What's the story behind this?
TxDOT stores bulk material at I'm sure you've seen it, you just didn't realize what it was, on the corner of the old Precinct Line Road and the frontage road of 114.
Okay.
And when we ran out,
Nobody was there to defend it?
they fired up the dump truck and took over. In fact, somebody left the front loader running for us. We jumped in the front loader
Cool.
and that it's not like we are pilfering, because that has been a common practice, both Westlake and Trophy Club, to be able to use some of TxDOT's material. As it turns out, it was very wet, and it clogged our spreader. So we did what we could with what we had. That answers your question. Let me give you a couple of community development updates. Wednesday night, the P&Z will be hearing the the site plan and replat of the Holiday Inn project. And as a consequence, we're hoping to have a special call meeting for the council on the 30th of this month. And I know some of you will be out of town, but I do think I've canvassed the council, and I know that we have a quorum, so we're going to move forward with a early morning, probably a 9 a.m. special call meeting just to hear the Holiday Inn site plan and replat, assuming that the P&Z offers a recommendation. Well, either which way, it needs to be heard by the council, so we're going to schedule that. The high school bridge project, we actually had to move the bridge a little bit further, about 40 feet to the south, to accommodate for closer to Bobcat, okay, to accommodate for the flow of water through that area. And, you know, at peak flow, where we had it located was constricted the area, and it forced that water even faster, the volume faster through the area. So we are in receipt of high school bridge plans that have moved that up 40 feet. I've also asked Murdad and Steve Leonard to, while you're at it, how about if you can help me clean up that entire drainage area behind Roseville? So he's getting that taken care of for me as well. So I'm very appreciative of that.
Will they extend the sidewalk, the
Sorry?
trail?
And it'll all tie into our trail and to the trail around the backside of the high school. Yes.
Does that sit on piers, Mike?
No, it's a span bridge.
Fan bridge.
It's
that's
a span.
anchored.
Piers at each end? Or?
We'll have footers, yeah.
Footers on
Okay.
either end.
It's kind of an interesting process. I had one installed in Burke Burnett before I came down, but, you know, these engineers are pretty smart fellas. Usually. And they set these footers with pins and bring in a crane, lift a manufactured bridge and set it on those pins, tie it. It's about, you know, maybe a couple hour process.
Wow.
If you blink, you'll miss it. So they're hoping to do that. By the way, it's about a 2 to 3 week construction project, and it'll be done. It won't be done during the holiday break, but a lot of the construction activity will. So it'll assuming we can get the plans approved and move through the process. So take advantage of the kids being out to do the majority of the construction work. And finally, Fresh Meadow Timber Ridge Drainage Project. Boy, have we gone round and round on this project, but I am happy to report that today I gave Stephen the go-ahead to publish the bids. We anticipate having that bid in front of you on the January 20th meeting for approval or an award of the contract. We'll begin construction of both those projects, Timber Ridge and Fresh Meadow, on the 27th of January. These are all fairly tight dates at this point. After I gave him pulled the trigger on the publishing notice, with a construction end date of the end of May. That it won't take that long. And what's most important is we get all of the work done on the golf course in the early months while play is limited. And you know, we were hoping to do this a month ago, but we were still dealing with easements and dotting the I's and crossing the T's. We're there, and fully anticipate this being done before May, and you know, provide some drainage relief to the residents along Fresh Meadow and in Timber Ridge. Consequently, I mean, just as it works out, both those projects are tied very closely to the Indian Creek rehab project, and the Blue Ribbon Subcommittee had the contractor, Robert Farrell from CPS Civil, and the developer for Centurion American in to discuss some other things, and we let him know that we're fixing to go out for bid, and his ears perked up. So it may be that we're going to get some really good bids in. I'm hoping we'll get some good bids, and I hope the contractors, all the contractors, are hungry. Yeah. Because these are, when you look at the entire scope of the drainage improvements, it's almost $1 million. Or does it exceed $1 million?
Roughly.
Right at it.
Yeah.
So it's a good project, and you know, it'll be a construction zone for a while down and through there, but it's long overdue, and I'm excited for the residents to get some relief along the way.
Just one thing, Mike.
Yes.
Pin Oak, how far down the road are we on looking at that one?
I'm sorry?
Pin Oak, how far down the road are we looking at
Pin
that?
Oak is going to happen, you know, that is kind of a project that's sitting in the background, assuming we get some good numbers on, and Indian Creek provides some excess dollars from the monies that we have set aside for that project. But I don't want to move forward with the design or the bid of that project until we know we don't have change orders for the Indian Creek project that may take additional dollars or things like that. So it's on the, I know it's on the 5-year plan. I would hope that we'll have enough dollars to take care of Pin Oak once we have a good feeling for where we're at with the Indian Creek project.
Okay.
I am trying to set up a lead tour of the Denton County Precinct 4 new facility, and I think it's in Highland Village, is it not? Or Flower Mound?
No, it's in Denton.
Oh, I thought they built one in Highland Village.
The one I.
I've been playing phone tag with the facility maintenance guy. I know you all had some concerns and questions about what is lead. Is it worth that extra $30,000 design fee? What does it cost to be a lead certified facility moving forward? And I thought it would be appropriate to maybe schedule a tour of a lead facility with you, if you can make it, and if not, you know, you can go up there and check it out yourself. But we're going to try to arrange for that, and I was hoping to have a date for you tonight. Unfortunately, I keep playing phone tag with the facilities manager. In the meantime, Stephen and I will be meeting, is it tomorrow?
Wednesday.
Wednesday with,
Unless you changed it.
no, I did not.
I think you're supposed to.
Maybe
No,
I did.
it's tomorrow.
No, it's not.
Then I need to change it.
If you did.
Okay. Anyway, we're meeting with the Sabre folks that Susan Edstrom had indicated that she would put us in touch. We've been in touch. I thought we had a meeting scheduled that didn't conflict with the PID committee, but if it conflicts with the PID committee, we'll reschedule the lead discussion.
Do we know if the high school's LEED certified or not?
I do
I mean, they're geothermal for their
I
heat
have no
plant.
idea. Speaking of the PID committee, we have met. I feel like we've made some significant progress. Patricia's done some great work trying to get us to a position with the MUD to engage them in a long-term service contract for utilities. I understand that their MUD attorney has got some concerns about where we're at, so we are scheduled to meet again this week and see where all that shakes out and where we land. But we have made, the last couple of meetings have really, I felt, made some significant progress, and I think everybody in that committee, both town and MUD, would state the same. So we continue to move forward. Toys for Tots. Between the chief and our collection box out here in the foyer, Chief, how many times do they come by and empty that box?
Emptied our foyer 3 times.
And you're at the fire station? And when he says empty the foyer, he's talking about the entire foyer. I mean, bicycles and all kinds of.
I am.
So.
When I was coming in here this afternoon, the lady that I guess was doing some of the pickups, she introduced herself, and I apologize, I don't remember, but she was working on that, and she said they were absolutely amazed and pleased at our response.
I can't
She said
imagine them not being pleased
She
with the
was
response.
thanking me a lot for the town's response. She said it was amazing.
When is the last day of pickup? Is
Today was.
Today is the.
It officially closed Sunday.
Well, someone asked me about it today, and I said, I bet if you brought it down, they'd get it to them.
Get down to the food bank.
Yeah.
Well, you
Okay.
could wrap something up for me.
Okay. What do you want?
I'm sure if anybody has something,
need a
you
new
can take it over to the
bicycle.
food pantry.
And finally, council, it's that time of the year again. Believe it or not, in January, we schedule a council retreat for the purpose of really kicking off, from our perspective, the budget cycle for the next fiscal year. That's we'll kind of review where we've been and where we're headed and what's important in the process, so that we have some general guidance moving forward in our budget cycle. So I would ask that you, if at all possible, be able to attend the retreat, and I will be sending out some potential dates for that process, because I know it's even as a bigger council, it's that much more difficult to get you all available at the same time, and generally that's a full day. It's a full day's retreat, and so we'll try to get that done before the mid-month of January, and more details to come forward. But I just wanted to kind of put you on notice that it's that time. We'll go off-site and do it as inexpensively as we can possibly do it, but it's a very, very important process in the entire scheme of things to give us some direction moving forward.
That will meet our requirements per the charter to provide you with goals and objectives.
That's exactly right.
I have a question, Mike. I was up coming west on 114 today, and they have their flasher light up, on the reader boards up like we have. That I guess on the 19th, the eastbound lanes of 114 are going to be complete. I noticed they were sweeping them today, and they're getting it ready. Do you know anything about the westbound lanes?
I have no update on the 114, 170
Yeah.
project. No, I'm sorry. I can get that to
I
you.
mean, it's all done in stride. I was just wondering if they were going to open westbound on the 19th along with the eastbound.
Yeah, April is pretty good about keeping me informed on that particular project because she's talking to the PIO for TxDOT. We'll get an update and send it out to the council.
Yeah. We might need to check with Andy too on the issues that were brought up. We have a meeting with him this week.
To speak of that, Commissioner Andy Eads is definitely in our corner. We've identified 4 or 5 issues as it relates to that particular project that has bubbled up as a result of the improvements. And he is more than aware and actively engaged in trying to resolve some of those issues. So,
Wasn't that designed by an engineer?
designed by somebody.
Designed by TxDOT in-house.
Were you able to meet with Michelle French?
I meet with her. Is that tomorrow?
That is tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah, I'm meeting with Michelle French tomorrow.
Please tell me it's
She is the
1/4 Trophy Lake Drive and 114. Please tell me it's one of the 5. Getting on.
Yes, it is.
Please, thank you very much.
Yeah, and Andy said they spent hours out here a couple weeks ago.
Madam Mayor, that's all I have. Only to say our employees had a great Christmas party Friday. And on behalf of the staff of the town, we wish each and every one of you a very Merry Christmas and holiday season.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I ran into one of your employees on Sunday who commented and really appreciated the celebration. Okay. Item number 17, Mayor and Council updates regarding training opportunities, educational and regional meetings, discussion of same. And I have, let's see, Northwest Community Partners We had a good meeting there, even though it was Wednesday morning, which made it real risky. And it was a sheet of ice out in front of the admin building. It was really scary. At any rate, Tam Parker talked about economic development, and because a lot of this is economic development and also looking at park possibilities regionally. It was very good. We had a very good dialogue. The LDS tour, the luncheon and dedication and everything was canceled with the weather, but they did have a tour subsequently, and it's a pretty impressive building. And they did comment at the time that they would hope to make parts, facilities available for community events, mostly anything except political or commercial. So I thought that was really nice. They have a fantastic display there if anybody gets to look at it. Did you? Yeah. I thought it was really good. The chamber luncheon was just a luncheon. Metroport, you went to Metroport, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. I was at Metroport.
It was just a meeting.
Oh, no. Oh, I forget.
Okay.
That was the
It
one
happens to
about
me all the
Oak-
time. Oh, with
about,
Scott
Roanoke.
Polikoff. Wasn't he? Yeah. Okay, and North Texas Commission, that was really interesting. I meant to bring the booklet with me, and I didn't. They commissioned a study, and they had people for a number of different sessions talk about the area and the things that were important and the things that were projected and how we needed to change to adapt to those things. And I will get a copy of that report for you to see. This is pretty impressive. Also, it's kind of a little mind-boggling with the North Texas Commission when you're sitting in the room and they introduce everybody, and there's CEOs, and I mean there's a lot of corporate people, a lot of government people, airport, different areas. So it's a pretty good organization, and very encouraging because they look at, again, the whole region. Lakeview Elementary Open House. My kids were in the very first class in Lakeview. My younger one. So it was pretty amazing because they have really changed that building. It's absolutely beautiful, and they have really increased the size of their gymnasium and cafeteria facilities and things like that to make it a lot more workable.
Is all the construction complete over there at Lakeview?
Pretty much, yeah. They had a community day where they had this, but I believe it's complete.
Okay.
And so that was, and of course they always appreciate when somebody does come. TML, newly elected officials conference.
Yeah, I'll go first. If you really want to feel humbled, you will fly with Greg Lamont. We left at 4:30 here, and I thought, yeah, well, we flew, so we got to Love Field, and I thought, well, this, we'll waltz right through this, There must have been 800 people in line. So we get to the ticket, and Greg, he's looks like my great grandfather, so I let him go first. And they look at his ticket, and they go, "Good morning, Mr. Lamont. You're TSA pre-certified. Go right through this line."
Right, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I look over there, there's 3 people in that line. 45 minutes later, he's sitting on a bench waiting on me. And same exact thing in Austin. There was no person there, but he figures I'm TSA certified. So he goes up to him, "Oh, hello, Mr. Lamont. Go right through the line." And the kicker is, and don't worry about taking off your shoes.
Yeah,
You're pre-certified. So maybe the Gray Eagles know about that. I don't know.
I don't want to pay the $10.
He did. He's never filled out anything.
I've never filled out anything to get it to me.
Really. So anyway, that was my humbling morning to start the meeting with. Having to wait 45 minutes in line. No, the conference was good. One thing that they pointed out that they changed at the last legislative session, which I think Patricia we've talked about this. Now even private emails are considered open records if they concern public business. So they made that change in the last session. But it was nice to. I was surprised at how many, and even TML was surprised at how many November elections they're having now. A lot of, there was probably at least the capacity, 75, elected officials there that majority were elected in November. So just a few that were May. But it was good. A lot of the stuff I knew and everything, but it was good to be refreshed and to hear the Now, I will say also that Greg asked a lot of questions during the meeting. I think I was up to 28 on my tally sheet, but he wasn't the only one. Believe me, there were 3 or 4 that really got involved. Let's put it that way.
Right?
Well, my intent was not to go and just sit and listen, but
To be an active participant.
absolutely, just things we've been told. Are they true? Can we change them? What have you? And, here are some things. Those doors do not have to be open. They can be
Closed.
closed
They don't have to be
with a
closed.
sign. They can be closed with a sign saying, let's see, public meeting in progress, open to the public. Walking quorum. It was stated that council members meeting with the town manager or a staffer regarding a particular item or items for the agenda is problematic. If proven to have affected the item as relates to the agenda, it can be a violation of the Open Meetings Act with both civil and criminal penalties for both council members and the staffer involved. It is wise to talk to residents, not the town manager, about agenda items. Agenda packet should be given out
President.
1 week in advance for a smooth, effective form of government. Elected officials
Should or shall?
should, well, talk to Rose on that. He's got that thing going.
Should, that's a should.
Should is, yeah, should is nice.
Elected officials need to be prepared and able to do their homework. Otherwise, staff controls the agenda. That's not me, that's them. It was also heavily criticized that giving documents out at the council meeting for decisions was a bad idea and how bad decisions are made. There was unanimous agreement on that. Okay. Sending an email with an opinion to the entire council is a violation of the Opens Meeting Act. We all know that.
Yeah.
However, you can send informational items to the council without comment, such as a newspaper article, documents, or items forwarded to you. You do not have to route them through a staff member. In order to call the question, it requires a second and a 2/3 vote of the council present.
Yeah.
We all know that? Okay. fine.
2/3.
Yeah, 2/3. You're going to shut off debate.
The tapes or notes to prior executive sessions can be given to a newly elected member to review, but not to former members of the council. You can discuss an issue on Facebook, but not give a decision in advance. As to deleting emails, I love this one.
That's
They should be kept as long as valuable.
I'm thinking may not be valuable at all. The discussion about posting on Facebook, that would be part of the new electronic thing?
No.
You can,
No,
Say that again.
they were not referring to a Facebook that the town might set up for us, that
Okay.
we talked about delaying. This would be your own Facebook or
yeah,
with the
okay.
RUTC, the
And
voice,
say
or whatever.
exactly what you said before.
You can discuss an issue on Facebook, but not give a decision.
An opinion.
They told you that?
Wow.
Whoa, that's different from what they've ever told.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because I want
I'm not
council to
going
weigh
there.
in on that one. Before I go there, I want council to weigh in.
Stay away from that.
You-
I would stay away from that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we should do it, but that's,
No,
I have to just share one thing about that class as well as other TML. I have a couple of times complained about some restriction and seeing if we couldn't get a little more flexibility, and every single time they say, Patricia knows what she's doing. They know who she
Yeah,
is.
she could.
And he said, she knows what she's doing. Listen to her.
Yeah,
Well,
they
there
go,
were several,
aren't you from Trophy Club?
there were several elected officials who would say some stuff about, I couldn't believe what some people said. Well, is it okay for me to sell something to the town? Okay. And they would say, refer to your town
Attorney.
They kept over and over referring to, and yes, very often would say, you should refer to Tom on that one.
They know
Well,
that we
and
put
it
tradition.
also depended on who, the question that was asked, they almost knew who the attorney was.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
they
that's
would, they said, oh, that sounds like someone, well, that's my town attorney. So they knew.
Yeah.
And I'm just talking about open meetings, by the way, when I wanted to get some flexibility, not anything else. Okay, thank you. All right,
Did
item
Ben- did
18,
Bennett
future
send it?
agenda items.
Did Bennett? Okay.
So why don't we
Okay.
put on there about changing the requirements to issue an agenda and maybe even move the council date, a different day of the week, or when the
Why don't
agenda
we-
should be issued.
Why don't we put, how
Friday to
about if
Monday is
we
just,
talk about some of these things, any kind of procedural changes at our retreat? What do you think?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
Okay, and we can make sure we have something on the agenda to be able to talk about that. Okay, all right.
I thought it was gonna.
Item number 19, pursuant to the following designated sections of the Texas Government Code annotated Chapter 551, Texas Open Meetings Act, the council will convene into closed executive session to discuss the following. A, Texas Government Code Section 551.0712, consultation with attorney, to consult with its attorney on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the disciplinary rules of conduct, rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflict with the Open Meetings Act. Water and wastewater services for PID, CCN, alternative services for the PID, legislative processes and actions, terms of representation, terms of interlocal agreement for provision of water and wastewater services, communications with TCEQ, town assets, and related matters. B, Texas Government Code Section 551.0712, consultation with attorney, and Texas Government Code Section 551.072, deliberations about real property, to consult with its attorney on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflict with the Open Meetings Act, and to discuss or deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property where deliberation in an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the position of the governmental body in negotiations with the third person. Item 1, sites for police facility. We'll convene into executive session at 9:46. We'll call the meeting back into session at 10:45.
I move we adjourn.
Oh, no, we have to say that there's not gonna be
And,
action.
okay, I'm sorry.
We have to say that there's no.
We'll call the meeting back into session at 10:45, and there's no action as a result of our executive session.
I still move we adjourn.
I'll second. I'm in favor too.
And the meeting is adjourned at 10:46.